Testing 1, 2, 3. Making sure everyone can hear me. Coming in nice and clear. Okay, beautiful. Hello, I am doing pretty good, friends. Who's hyped as hell? I've been missing this game something fierce. So for anyone who doesn't know, because it has been a little bit, we are playing through Our Life Beginnings and Always. This is one of my absolute favorite games in the history of forever. And you grow up with the dude you see here on the screen. This is Cove Holden. He is your next door neighbor. He is a potential love interest. He can be a best friend. And this game is so LGBT plus inclusive that I genuinely just like adore it for that. Not to mention the story is fucking phenomenal. So we have played through steps 1 and 2 already. If you want to look into those, you'll have to go check it out over on my YouTube or play it for yourself. We are currently wrapping up step 2 and going into step 3. Hi, Jojo. But yeah, dear God, let's hope we can actually do this shit, because last time my power shit out on me. We'd be big nervous over here, friends. But it's fine. Good energy. Okay. And then summer ended. Yes, I'm sure. There was no denying it. Today was the very last day of summer. Tomorrow you were heading to class. Probably your feelings were muddled. For the record, I am trying to play and respond as much as I feel I would respond like as an actual person. So the main game is free. You can play through with Cove all on your own for completely free. And then there are a couple DLCs you can buy for $5 each. I have all of the DLC. So if you want to check out with me first to see if it's worth, buying yourself, 1,000% fucking valid. But yeah, I'd say your feelings were muddled. There were aspects of going to school that you missed and others you would happily live without. If only you could pick and mix between bits of the summer and school. You got dressed, not envisaging the day before, but contemplating what lay ahead of you tomorrow. Life was going to be different. You had come to think of the summer vacation as the norm, but school sucked up the majority of the year, whereas the summer vacation was just a respite in the middle. So, rather than it being different, it was kind of a return to the normal. What did your normal life really mean? You considered how fondly your moms talked about their summer vacations as kids. You dimly recognized that one year the pattern of school and summer itself would be over for good. It was hard to imagine. You'd gotten distracted, one arm still out of a sleeve. You pulled it through and put your mind back to the present. So it's available on PC and then it's available on phones on itch. This season had brought about plenty of changes of its own, like Kyra's visit, though that too was coming to an end today. Extremely fond of Kyra. I love Ko's mom, don't get me started, she's so sweet. The neighborhood was about to feel a lot emptier. You finished dressing, which was good. Cove would be there any moment. You'd agreed to see his mom off together. Officially, the plan was that he would come over to bring you round to his house when she was ready to set off, but you both knew that you'd be hanging out for at least a little while beforehand. Kyra's visit had troubled Cove when it first happened. It had been a sudden change, thanks to Mr. Holden's infamous tendency to surprise people, but once he was able to adjust, he'd been in pretty good spirits with her around. It was a relief for everyone. You turned to your desk where the box containing your accessories resided. We love Cove's mom. No, we're not doing the anklet. Accessories reminded you of that anklet conversation. You still didn't have any yourself. Yeah, I'm not doing that to Cove, sorry. But that chat was certainly a memorable part of this summer. Cove knew your house well enough. You could lounge in your room to wait for him. You made yourself comfortable on your bed. This was where you'd be hanging out, so there wasn't much point in going downstairs just to come straight back up again. It wouldn't be the first, and probably won't be the last, time that Cove brought himself to your room without you taking him there. A knock at the door broke you from the idle daydream you'd been having about endless summers. You recognized the sound immediately, different from the cheerful tune Ma rapped out when she wanted your attention or Mom's direct beats, and Elizabeth tended to skip knocking completely, which is wild. Those knocks were just hard enough to be heard and had uncommonly long pauses in between. They were Cove's. Come in. Cove opened the door, smiling casually as he caught your eye. Hi, Blake. Hi, Cove. He stepped further into the room. With other guests, you might have offered them a seat, but you and Cove were long past those tentative stages of friendship. Your room was as familiar to him as his own. You watched as Cove sat down in your desk chair, his preferred spot. He rolled it closer to the bed to make it easier to chat, tweaking the angle so that he was facing you fully. Once happy with the position, he leaned in towards you, hands held in his lap. His actions weren't the ones of someone who planned on moving from his spot anytime soon, even though you had an appointment to keep together that day. Water! Ah, not the little tickle in the back of my throat. Damn. I love that Cove low-key matches our room, though. Like, that's so cute. Like, it's all giving Ocean Boy. When is your mom leaving? We've got some time. She's still got a shower and stuff before she goes. She didn't want me to just keep hanging around while she was doing that. He lifted his head, his gaze drifting out through the window, and chuckled. I can't believe she's already leaving, just when I'm getting used to her being there every day. He leaned back in the chair, a weary smile tickling his cheeks. She'll be back. Kyra's gotta come back. He cocked his head thoughtfully before shrugging. He ran a hand through his hair before shaking his head, as if shaking off the topic like a dog whipping off water following a dip in the sea. The conversation lapsed into another comfortable lull. Cove swung his feet underneath the seat of the chair, eyes resting on you. Having him over here was so nice. No matter how you spent the time, you always felt better for being in his company. You couldn't help but adore him, both as a friend and in a way that plucked at your heart a vague yearning for more. Maybe it was because summer was almost over that your feelings were rushing in on you now, like high tide at the end of a long day. Summer was such a meaningful time for the two of you. Not only because it was when you first met, but because it was a season that you could spend almost entirely as you pleased, and you both chose to spend it together. You weren't ready to admit it to Cove now. Not now, we're not ready. We're still babies, what do you mean? Maybe one day it would be different, but for now you stayed quiet. Whether that day came next week or next year, you wanted to wait until the time felt right for you. I love them so much, my babies. The two of you tried to find something to say now. Luckily, it didn't end up being that hard. This was a really nice summer. I'm glad we got to spend so much time together. I love Cove. Cove's my little ocean dude. Cove still nestled cozily in your chair, smiled at your response. How are your fish doing? Really good. Things in the tank are stable and everybody looks healthy. I love how proud he is of his fish. That was nice to hear. You'd learned from Cove how hard it was to maintain an aquarium. Frank has been busy, keeps darting between the plants and out again when I walk by, like a game of peekaboo. Or hide and seek. Yeah. Cove idly glanced out the window. He gave a resigned sigh. It's gonna be harder to surf. You know, with school, it getting colder out. I don't want to get rusty. Not that I like surfing, but I wish it liked me. That's such a... I feel like I haven't tried surfing in real life, but I feel like that would be me in a nutshell. Yeah, I like surfing, but I wish it liked me. I can't stick to the board. He gave a light smile coupled with a shrug as response. Won't be long until we get our grades for that summer work we did. Cove's bangs fluttered as he huffed, sinking in the chair. I'm not looking forward to that. We'll just have to see what mine are like. Me with summer work, though. Do you think we'll see Miranda around school this year? Probably. She could be in one of our classes again. Oh my goodness, yes, I loved Miranda. You hoped you'd see her often. Blake, Cove. The sudden call from downstairs caught you both unaware. You'd nearly forgotten the world outside your room. From the guilty look on his face, Cove had done the same. Just had a call. Cove's mom is ready to go. If you're quick, she might keep the mandated motherly smothering to a minimum. You doubted that, but it was nice that Mom and Mrs. Priest had their strange sense of humor in common. Your eyes met Cove's. Wordlessly, you headed downstairs together. Each step on the way there was painfully slow, like he was trying to delay the inevitable. Aw, Cove. His whole body tensed leaving the house, and Cove froze altogether before you both could cross the street. The door's open. Dad must be taking her stuff out. He swallowed hard. She's really gonna leave. Rest your hand on his arm. You felt a small shiver ripple through his body as the warmth from your hand sank in. Cove looked at you like he was hoping you had a solution for how he was feeling, and all you could do was give his arm a squeeze for support. At that, some of the conflict warring on his face eased a bit. Together, you went across the street and inside his house, finding his parents in the living room, surrounded by his mom's packed things. "Hey, kids." "Good timing. I just called the taxi." I love Kyra. Can we just talk about the fact that, like, I'm sorry, but both of Cove's parents are, like, objectively attractive characters, like, and that's coming from an ace person. Like, I'm sorry, he's got good genes. His parents, look at them. Y'all can't even tell me I'm wrong, and if you know the community around our life, I know for a fact that's not an unpopular thing to say. People be simping for both of Cove's parents, and I'm like, y'all, relax. It's gonna be okay. And hi, Blake. So glad I get to see you today. It was fabulous getting to know you this summer. I finally got to put a face to the name I've heard so many times. She winked, and Cove pouted on cue over the teasing. Hunter, I don't think that's what Joe meant when they said hello. I'm really happy I got to meet you two. Hopefully it won't be too long before we see each other again. Nodding, Kyra turned her attention back to her boys. Can I just say I love that even though her and Cliff aren't together, the game still refers to them as her boys? Like, that's so cute. I love it so much. She patted Cliff on the arm with a warm smile, and then she enveloped Cove in a crushing hug. Initially, Cove squirmed to break free from her grip, but his mom was unfazed and kept him locked in place. Heartbeats later, he gave in and hugged her back tightly. He loved his mama. Stop, the sweet baby angel. And I'm so happy this trip was a success. Cliff looked like he was bursting with pride. And then Cove stiffened. Kyra loosened her hold on him enough to study his face, concerned. She spoke her next words in a whisper that had been meant just for her son. Do you want to unshelve it? Raising an eyebrow, Cliff watched them carefully. His smile began to falter. What's wrong? Cove sighed, and his gaze flickered over to you for a moment. And then, just as quick, it was back on his parents. It's alright. Are you sure? I don't want to do it now. I can tell Dad later. Nervously, you watched the exchange with the growing suspicion that Cove didn't want to have that conversation while you were there. You wondered if you should offer to leave when Kyra gave Cove a pat on the head. You can always call me if you want me to be part of the conversation, okay? I'll call. Thanks, Mom. Cliff still looked baffled about what Kyra and Cove were referring to, but you watched as his shoulders slowly relaxed. You figured that he decided to wait for Cove to be ready to talk to him. Can I just say I love how respectful his parents are of like, okay, he doesn't want to talk about it, so we're gonna leave it alone, instead of trying to like pry the information out of him and be like obnoxious. Like they're like, okay, he'll talk to us when he wants to. And with Cliff's silence, things seemed to be settled for now. After that, it wasn't long before the taxi arrived, rolling up in front of the house and in clear view of the open door. Kyra stood up, smiling sadly. Well, that's my ride. Yeah. The matching reply got a chuckle out of Kyra as you all filed out of the house. Father and son went with Kyra's bags in hand. His mom's going back home, so his parents are separated. Um, the game actually started with Cove and his dad moving to Sunset Bird. So she came to stay for the summer, and now summer's over, so she's got to head back home, get back to work, and all that stuff. Oh my goodness, I just love them. This family is so freaking cute. Water break. All the reading with this game makes me thirsty as hell. The babies. Once outside, you spotted your family waiting by the street, and to your surprise, Derek was also with them. He stood uncomfortably, and he waved as soon as you noticed him. Hey Blake, hi Cove. When did you get here? My dad dropped me off just a little bit ago. Thought I could visit one more time before school started. I like that you can see what their influences on Cove, like the outfits are dad and the hair's mom. For real though, it's so cute. I love Derek. Derek is so underappreciated. You picked a busy time. Sorry. Derek couldn't even look at Cove. He nervously kept rolling a pebble with the bottom of his shoe. I wasn't even thinking that your mom would be leaving today. I'm sorry, dude. What? You're not interrupting anything. You're always welcome here. It would have been sad if I didn't get to say goodbye before leaving. I think so too. It was apparent Derek would have preferred to have gotten there at a more opportune moment. He never liked seeming impolite, but their reassuring words soothed his worries. The tension he was holding in his body lessened, and he looked like he was feeling much more like himself. Bye, Derek. It was fun getting to know you. Bye, ma'am. Is there anything I can do to help? I love Derek so much. My boy just wants to help. He wants to be a little helper guy. Nah, don't worry yourself over that. We're just about set. In that short amount of time, Cliff had gathered and packed the bags into the trunk. Kyra took one last look at everyone inside. All right, I don't want to keep the driver waiting. It's time to head out. The little crowd that had formed around started their chorus of farewells and well wishes traveling, but Kyra still made no move to get into the taxi. She placed her attention on Cove. I'll call when I get to the airport and when I make it to Nevada. Also, you better call the moment you walk in the door at home. Otherwise, we'll be wondering all night if you got into trouble on the way there. I can do that. And could you call tomorrow too, so I can tell you how school went? Of course. I want to hear all about it. I also love that he has his mama's eyes. Stop it, they're so cute. Kyra put a hand on Cove's head and affectionately ruffled his hair one last time. She then let go, only to move on to squeezing his cheeks in her hands instead. Mom. I love you so much, baby. She was chuckling by the time she freed him and rounded things off with a small tap to the tip of his nose. Cove rubbed at his face with a grin. Like, he loves his mom. He's a little embarrassed because he's at that weird teen age, but you know he loves his mama. I'm obsessed. Stop it. Finally, she walked to the car while waving and took her seat in the taxi. Cliff hooked an arm around Cove's shoulder and kept him close as it began to pull away. For a moment, Cove looked up at his dad and then wrapped an arm across his back. Bye, Mom. Bye. Travel safe. Kyra rolled down the window and stuck her head out of it. She waved again while blowing kisses at Cove and Cliff. See you again. Before she was out of sight, you decided to call out with your family and hers, absolutely. As you added your voice to the others, you watched Kyra's smile grow larger. The cab turned down another road and completely disappeared from view. Cove let go of his dad and took a few steps out into the empty street, still looking in the direction his mom went. He smiled quietly, deep in thought. You got the impression Cove was feeling better than he was earlier. He was finally content with the way things were. The summer breeze brought a sweet-sounding jingle across the way. It was the wind chime you had given Cove. He had hung it in the front of his house, and it had become a very familiar sound in this neighborhood. You jumped a bit when your mom put a hand on your shoulder, pulling you away from your thoughts. She smiled when you looked at her. This was a great vacation, huh? Summer isn't over until the second I fall asleep. That was my mood growing up. I'm like, nah, as long as I'm awake, it can keep being summer. It'll be fine. No naps for you then. Can't risk you accidentally ending summer a few hours too early for the rest of us. I also love my characters' moms. They're so fucking wholesome. This game just has phenomenal representation across the board. Like, holy shit. Chuckling, you shook your head amused. Cove walked back over to the group, still genuinely happy. Derek grinned at him welcomingly, and everyone else there smiled at him, even Elizabeth. Not even Elizabeth being nice, okay. That's how you know shit's real right now. Well, Ma. Ma clapped her hands together, bringing everyone's attention back to the present. It's almost lunchtime. I think I'll put something special together. Her eyes sparkled with a plan, and Mom smiled. I bet you could use some help with that. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Derek glanced between the two, his eyebrows furrowed. Is there something I could do? He just wants to help. He wants to help everybody forever. Stop it. Your moms exchanged a fond expression. Ma shook her head. That's very sweet, Derek, but it's all right. It's not your job. Technically, your dad left you under Cliff's watch. You're meant to be taken care of by him, not doing chores for the neighbors. Mom laughed a little over her own joke. You watched Derek look away, discouraged. It's okay, I don't mind. He was a little bashful about it. You wonder if Mom's joke had just reminded him that he wasn't initially meant to be invited to lunch. It was getting a little awkward. Mom grinned sympathetically. Her comment was meant to lighten the mood, not bring it back down. Ma tried again to get things moving forward. Why don't you kids go have fun? You all can come back in about an hour. We'll make enough for everyone. Mom nodded in agreement. Another stunning idea, Lonnie. I love my moms. They're so sweet. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. That sounds like a plan then. I don't want to cramp your style. I've got some stuff to work on, so I can be out of your hair this afternoon. You should come by later too. No reason you should be the odd man out. Mom seemed amused at Cliff rubbing his neck nervously. He grinned a wavering but pleased smile. I appreciate the invite. He looked over the assembled crowd with knowing glances. I can help too. With as many people as you're feeding, that's going to be a lot of food. Didn't you hear what we told Derek? It wouldn't be fair to make you cook when we're the ones who are inviting you in. Ma raised an eyebrow when Cliff waved it off. I insist. Derek would be missing time with his pals. This would be a break for me. I'm quite the chef. Ma and Mom exchanged further glances before Mom shrugged. An airtight argument. If you're sure, we'll be happy to have you, Chef Cliff. Cliff's grin widened and seemed more hyped than you'd expect him to be about helping with lunch. Cove shook his head, a fond smile on his face. Then all us grown-up people will be heading inside. I assume the rest of you kiddos are staying out? Maybe not all of them. Ma tilted her head, a silent question for Elizabeth. Your sister thought for a moment. I'll stay with the kids. That's great. Both your moms smiled at her, while Derek and Cove didn't seem to appreciate her phrasing. But with the plan decided, all three parents waved and headed for your house. It was just you teenagers now. Elizabeth looked at you and the others, a curious expression on her face. So, what now? You silently wondered if Elizabeth only stayed out with you to avoid getting roped into work. Then again, she could just genuinely want to hang out. You couldn't tell with your sister. Cove spoke up after no one else did to answer Elizabeth's question. Want to go down to the shopping street? It's been a while, and I don't think there's a lot of other things we could agree on. Yeah, sure. I love Cove knows. He's like, Elizabeth's picky as hell. Let me pick something she'll actually agree with. Sounds awesome to me. Unlike you guys, I haven't been there 1,001 times. It's new to me. Let's do it. Let's go. Can I just say can we just appreciate this beach shot for a minute? Because the beach is so, the art in this game is fucking phenomenal. And I specifically love getting to look at the beach like this. It's so pretty. I love this shit. Okay, back into it. You strolled across the road as a group, down to the beach and then to the left. It took less than 15 minutes to arrive, one of the conveniences of Sunset Bird. It really does look pretty. I love it. The four of you looked around at the familiar shops, trying to see if anything caught your attention this time. Derek was the most enthusiastic. He checked out every stall with his eyes wide with wonder. Elizabeth and Cove were in good spirits as well. That's so cool! He ran over to a street magician who was currently doing a card trick for a group of enchanted tourists. Derek clapped when the magician showed a middle-aged man his card. Derek turned back to the group with a curious gleam on his face. What does it take to perform here anyway? Do you have to ask somebody, or do you just show up and start doing stuff? Who would you even ask? It's a public street. Hey, Miss Mayor, can I pull a rabbit out of my hat? Please, Flopsy is well behaved, I promise. Okay, Elizabeth kinda has a point on that one. But also, poor Derek. Derek chuckled, his eyes searching up and down the scene. Maybe there's a boss of the shopping street? No one does any of this around my neighborhood. It's just regular stores behind walls. It's different if someone wants a real store, but here I'm pretty sure people are just putting on their little shows whenever they want and do whatever. That's so neat. Would we be allowed to do something too? Cove laughed and Derek began almost vibrating with excitement. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. What would we do? Well, I don't know what. Not yet. I mean, I just found out it's a possibility, you know? But there's gotta be something. We know cool stuff. I'm sure if we think about it, we could plan a show that'd really get a crowd pumped. Oh, poor sweet baby angel. I love Derek, but like, what? Hmm. You know what? Fuck it. I'ma support Derek full force. He thought it was a great idea and wanted to be part of it. I'm in. Woo! I knew I could count on you. Now we just need the act. It'll come to us. Right. With some amusement, the gang continued to peruse the stalls. Elizabeth found some earrings with a dangling, badly misprinted globe that everyone laughed at. Cove picked out a blob as Iceland, but Derek thought it had to be Greenland. You know, this is a world with what looks like 9 continents. I think you're both wrong. No, it's definitely Australia. The other 3 giggled at your interjection. Suddenly, Cove froze. You stared at him and then tried to see what caught his attention. When you saw a familiar face down the way, it all made sense. Oh boy, who you seeing, Cove? What's wrong? Between the crowds, his bright hair stood out like a neon green bowl in a kitchen sink. It was Jeremy. Oh no, this bitch. Jeremy slowly drifted his eyes down the street and his eyes widened in mutual recognition. He definitely noticed you. Derek frowned and Cove tensed up. You couldn't help but remember the last time you'd seen Jeremy at Miranda's birthday party. No wonder Cove was already defensive. This bitch. Glare at him. He's not welcome. Go away. Get away from us, stupid. You narrowed your eyes and projected your dislike. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Her gaze swept over Jeremy without a hint of a clue. Jeremy simply scoffed to himself and waded deeper into the crowd of people. Derek relaxed and exhaled loudly. I'm glad he's not going to start anything. He peeked over at Elizabeth with a tiny smirk. See, that was the mean kid. Huh? She still didn't get it. That first summer day hadn't made nearly as much of an impression on her as it did for Derek, but he smiled and waved it off. Just forget about him. I already have. He laughed and Cove smiled lightly. He seemed in a much better mood now that Jeremy was gone. Your eyes wandered over to where Jeremy disappeared. You hadn't forgotten the day you met him either. He was only going to be in town for a vacation with the parents he hated. That glimpse was probably the last time you would ever see him. Keep that thought to yourself. I don't think that's relevant. No one wants to see him. He's horrible. Very mean, very nasty, not a fun person to be around. Elizabeth snapped her fingers in front of your face. Apparently, you had spaced out. Cove and Derek were already at the next stall. Come on, unless you want to get left here. You nodded and caught up with the others. Cove raised an eyebrow. What were you thinking about? Nothing. He gave you a searching look, but let it drop when Derek yelled at you to go check something out. Jeremy was unlike anyone you had ever met before. Honestly, he is pitiful. I think mean people like that with no reason to be mean are kind of the worst. You and the group moved on from the stall and from Jeremy. It didn't take long for everyone to return to the joking. You all enjoyed what little time you had left as Elizabeth mentioned the hour was almost up. The little trip had flown by, and lunch must have been waiting for you now. Derek bounced on the balls of his feet. Come on, guys, let's get going so we can eat. I'm starving. You're not starving, you're hungry. Homebound, here we go. Cove stretched one of his arms lazily. Let's go then. You looked at him appraisingly. Oh my gosh. I love that this is an option. Wait a minute. Absolutely. You asked Cove to carry you back to the house. Do it! Hey, Cove. Yeah? Could you carry me back home? What? His face. Poor ocean boy is so shook. Cove turned red, obviously flustered. I love flustered, Cove. Explained you wanted a piggyback ride. I want a piggyback ride, and you're the only one big enough to give me one. Cove sighed and shook his head. Elizabeth and Derek became a chorus of laughter. Come on, Cove, it'll be fun. Alright, not him agreeing. Wait, no, we're getting a piggyback ride from Cove and I love it here. I'm so obsessed. They're just so fucking cute. Cove stepped over to you. He looked like he couldn't believe what he was doing. Your lips quirked into a large smile. Aw, yeah, thanks. He carefully crouched down in front of you so you could climb on. It took a little bit of clamoring to get yourself completely up on Cove's back. However, when Cove slipped his arms under your legs and stood up, you felt very secure. They're so cute. I love them. My heart's gonna explode. Y'all, I'm not gonna survive. The cuteness overload is so real right now. Look at that little smile and his little blushy face. Elizabeth watched with a smirk on her face while Derek laughed even harder. It was fair to say that your antics were entertaining. You were glad Cove went with it. Cove carried you home, but he seemed pretty bashful about the situation. He struggled with how much to grip around you and whether or not he should try to reposition things. This poor sweet baby. It was a pleasant walk home, and in no time you had made it back. Derek got the front door and held it open for everyone as you each moseyed inside. The three parents were still in the kitchen. They looked up and waved. Aw, look at the Wrens. I love them. Welcome back, everyone. You made it just in time. I hope you're hungry. When Cove had brought you inside, the parents couldn't help but notice the odd conveyance. Your moms were unsure, and Mr. Holden raised an eyebrow. Did you pull something, Blake? I'm okay. Aw, Cove, you've gotten so strong. And reliable, too. What a guy. Cove rolled his eyes at the commentary, then started walking to your couch. He bent down and you let yourself plop back onto the couch. Thanks for the lift. Cove exhaled loudly and shook out his arms. He just seemed relieved that he made it. So, did everyone have a nice time out? She gestured for people to take a seat at the table. Plates and silverware have already been placed out. You took your normal seat. Elizabeth sat across from you, and Derek took the seat to your left. Cove sat on your right. Oh yeah, we had a great time. It was fine. I had fun. Y'all know I have to go with it, though. Yeah, the bank heist went off without a hitch. Your joke got some chuckles going around the table. That's good in my book. Casually, Mr. Holden sat in the empty seat across from Cove. He smiled at you and all the other kids. Mom set down a platter full of water glasses on the table. She looked down at the gathering. It's a good thing we have 8 chairs. I can't remember the last time we've had a group this big over for a meal. Can you pass the drinks down to the other side? Make sure you all get one. Sure. Those close to the cups obliged and started offering waters around. As everything got set up, Mom chided Elizabeth to take her elbows off the table. And you shouldn't slouch. She pointed to Mr. Holden, who was leaning forward with both arms on the table. Oh, he's in trouble. Oh shit. Oops. Mr. Holden seemed unsure about all the sudden attention and carefully rearranged his posture to something suitable for a fancy dinner. He smiled sheepishly at Ma. Elizabeth rolled her eyes, and Ma gave a level look at her. You shouldn't be impolite to a guest in the house either. Elizabeth groaned, long and long-suffering. Ma giggled, and Mr. Holden chuckled. The lot of you could learn a thing or two from Derek. He has the best manners here. Derek blushed, but it was true. His posture was upright and formal. He even held his fork gracefully. His table manners, on top of all his attempts to aid your parents, made him the model of meal attendee behavior. It's nothing. It's true, though. You've been a lovely guest. I've noticed that, too. It's always nice when you stay over, Derek. Derek smiled and sat a little taller in his chair. Aw, not Derek beaming all proudly. And do you have anything good to say about our other guest? She looked deliberately at Cove with a teasing smirk. Or is there just nothing to say? Okay, can we leave Cove alone, though? 'Cause he didn't do shit to you, Elizabeth. Why are you like this, girl? Well, Cove is my number 1, but he does still clean his hands by wiping them on his pants. Ugh, not his dad calling him out. Cove frowned at that and absent-mindedly brushed his hands on his pant legs. Your moms laughed lightly. Elizabeth, you should know, after all these years, Cove is hardly a guest anymore. Cove smiled awkwardly. Thanks. Oh. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think good manners are something to learn in life. However, I don't think it has to turn into like a teasing Cove over it. Who cares? I don't think it's that big of a deal. Me neither. Everyone ate their meal together and continued to hang out for the afternoon. After the food, you and the others played a couple games and talked about plans for the upcoming year. The time passed quickly, and soon it was time to part ways. Mr. Holden talked to your moms, and Cove drifted over to you, knowing that as soon as his dad finished up, he would be leaving. It'd be cool to stay, but we have some stuff to do before everything closes today. Yeah, bye. Could you move? I need the phone. Cove raised an eyebrow, and Elizabeth impatiently gestured behind him. Cove realized he was standing right in front of where the receiver was placed. He sidestepped out of the way and shook his head, clearly thinking Elizabeth was rushing too much. Your sister made a beeline for the phone and started dialing the number of what you figured was one of her friends. Knowing Elizabeth, she was going to be on there for a while. You, Cove, and Derek shuffled closer to the door. It seemed like Mr. Holden was wrapping up his conversation, so everyone started saying their various farewells. See you later, Cove. We gotta do this again sometime. Yeah, see you. Cove turned to you and smiled slightly. Bye, Blake. Hug Cove goodbye! All of the Cove hugs! You stepped forward and spread your arms wide. Cove only had a moment to react before you encircled him in your arms. Cove hugged you back tightly, and his chest rumbled as he laughed. His cheeks were slightly red, especially when he looked over and noticed that Derek had watched the whole thing. Derek smiled amusedly. Seriously, dude, we'll have to hang out later. I'm gonna miss you during school. He offered Cove a high five, and the two boys clapped their hands together. Cove and his dad left soon after that. Your parents started cleaning up the house, and Elizabeth was still chatting to her friends on the phone. It was just you and Derek left. He elected to stay outside in front of the house to wait for his dad to pick him up. You decided to keep your guest company, although he was originally Cove's visitor. A light summer breeze blew through your hair, and Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot. Thanks for waiting with me. He kicked at the ground distractedly. Dad's still gonna be a while, so do you want to go for a walk? Sure, I don't mind. The two of you walked down the street again, just wandering without a destination planned. It was a quiet stroll, too quiet for Derek being the company. You turned to him when you had noticed that he wasn't saying a word. That was unusual. Derek always had something he could chat about. You weren't sure if you should ask about it. Somehow you ended up at the old park near the beach. You glanced over to Derek once more, still expecting him to say something any second now. However, nothing came from him. In fact, now you noticed a frown creeping on his face. Derek, are you okay? What's happening? What's up with my guy Derek? I'm confused. Derek smiled when he realized you were watching. At least his mouth was turned up. There wasn't anything that really felt happy in the expression. He turned away and the smile fell off his face. His eyes stared intently at the ground and you raised an eyebrow. If you want to talk about something, I'm here. I'm a little sad. It's just, with school starting back up again, it's gonna be harder to visit. I'm gonna have homework and clubs and practices and everything else. It really sucks we go to different schools. His face screwed up and his fists were closed tightly together. This was really concerning him. What if we don't have time? You channeled some optimism into the conversation. We'll make time. We can talk over the phone and have plans for weekends. It'll be okay. Derek looked up at the sky. It was orange and purple with little wisps of clouds scattered around. A plane flew high with a jet stream trailing behind it. Then he turned to the ground again. Derek's face was tilted far enough down that it was harder to read his expression. Hey Blake, I actually wanted to talk to you about something, if you don't mind. There was a pause and you waited for him to finish his thought. I was just kind of wondering, do you like guys at all? Like, would you ever want to be with someone who was a boy? Sorry if that's weird to ask. I could be with a guy. I love Derek. He's so sweet. Just a little guy, little bean. Okay then. He hesitated before finishing his question. So, what I mean is, is there any guy you think is kind of cool that you like around here? Not at school or anything like that? He ducked his head further. You thought about it. Ah, the options, not the Mr. Holden option. What the hell? Hmm. I love that I like you as an option. That's so cute. There are a lot of guys I think are cool. Oh, Derek shrugged and then started to mumble and wonder. Maybe you don't get what I'm trying to ask. He's so sweet trying to ask whatever the hell he's doing right now. So Derek pulled himself together. Somewhat meekly, he looked at you while he tried to project confidence. His posture was too tight for you to believe it. He was nervous. Just the nervy guy. You know, thinking ahead and everything is important. You've got to get yourself a game plan and all that. It's good to make plans, especially backup plans. He's blushing so much, it's adorable. Stop. He babbled, all full of energy and forced gusto. Well, anyways, I heard about this thing where people make pacts with their good friends that, if they don't find anyone else, then they get together. Together, like they get married and stuff. So I was thinking, since it's good to have plans, it might be cool if we did something like that. Stop, he's so cute! His eyes widened and he started to make frantic hand gestures. Just, then we'd never have to worry about the future or finding someone. We can set it like a whole decade in the future, forever from now. We'd have graduated high school and probably college too. We'd have jobs and be really grown up. I mean, we'd probably have our own places and maybe our own pets and student loans and cars. Derek babbled on for a while more. It was as if all the words he held in silence during your walk had burst out now all at once. So yeah, what do you think? He's so sweet. Um, that's a good idea. I think having a backup plan sounds smart. Really? Awesome. Derek brightened significantly and started to bounce excitedly on the balls of his feet. Okay then, let's do it. Ah! He held out his hand, offering a shake. Officially, he repeated the terms of the deal. If in 10 years I, Derek Suarez, am still single, and if in 10 years you, Blake Thrasher, are still single, we both agree that the two of us will get together. Okay, shake his hand. They're so cute. He took his hand and shook it firmly as Derek beamed. Thanks. I feel better about the future already. I guess it's working out. He laughed and scratched at the back of his head. You could tell he was giddy about this, and you felt happy too. I am too. Cool. Look at that blushy boy. He clearly has a thing for them. Ah. You didn't spend much longer at the park after that. Derek didn't want to miss his dad, so you both made your way back to your street. Derek's steps forward seemed lighter than before. Derek found all kinds of fun things to talk about as you walked side by side back to your street. Then you plopped down on the curb outside your house, hugging your arms around your legs. His voice was comforting, and you were grateful that Derek was keeping you both distracted from the inevitable. For a little while longer, it was still summer vacation. You listened while he excitedly told you all about the new action movie coming out in a few months. And then you watched his brow pinch as he described the new ball tricks he'd been working on perfecting. It was easy to laugh along to his tales. You enjoyed the shine in his green eyes most when the conversation shifted to funny stories about his little brothers. Still, there was a part of you that hadn't moved from the conversation in the park. Your face went hot replaying Derek's proposal for the future in your mind. You'd said yes. Did that mean you were kind of engaged? Engaged with caveats, maybe. Focusing on the pebble you were rolling under your foot, you felt a strange thrill twisting in your chest. You peeked at him, and Derek was still busily telling you about the time Nicholas dropped his treat baggie in the car and most of the cookies fell under the seat in the loose hair and dirt. Wrinkling your nose, you laughed. No matter what happened in 10 years, you hoped you and Derek still got to hang out, even if you were just sitting on the curb together. It was almost hard to believe that much time had passed at all when a couple of short honks rang out in the neighborhood. Snickering, Derek scratched the back of his neck. "Dad's here." You looked up the street and spotted the van coming around the corner. Mrs. Suarez cheerily waved her arm out the window from the shotgun seat. "Oh, and Mom too. Guess we know what that means." Derek rose to his feet and brushed some dirt off his pants. You followed his lead as the car rolled to a stop in front of your house. The van's side door slowly and laboriously opened. On the inside was Jorge, with a victoriously wide grin as he tugged the heavy door open the rest of the way so Derek had a way in. "Hi!" Nicholas was there too. You heard him well before you saw him. "We're here!" Looking past Jorge, you found Nicholas bouncing against his straps in full force. "Thanks for coming, guys." "Hey boys, nice seeing you." Holding on to the sides of the open door, Derek leaned into the car to give Nicholas a moment of one-on-one attention. You could hear the kids' giggles over everything else. Faintly, you could hear that a conversation was happening between Derek's parents, but you couldn't make out a single word. And before you could do anything with that thought, Derek glanced over his shoulder. He paused and held your gaze softly. And then Derek let go of the car to stand back in front of you one last time. "I've got to go. Well, you know that, but bye. It was really cool hanging out today in the summer." Not even his usual cheery enthusiasm could keep his sadness away this time. His voice grew quieter, and he scuffed his foot on the pavement. "We had a good summer break, huh? But it had to end sometime." "Yeah, and it was the best summer, too." The confidence and sincerity in your voice lifted his mood. He put his hands on his hips and beamed. "It was." "Hug him goodbye. Give him a hug." Wrapping your arms securely around Derek and hooked your chin on his shoulder, you squeezed your eyes shut as though that would make your embrace even more powerful. He hugged you back just as tight. Before he let go completely, he whispered one last promise. "Don't worry, I'll be back again sometime." But the time had finally come, and Derek hopped up into the cabin of the van. Jorge and Nicholas waved to you from their seats. The adults shouted their goodbyes next from the front. You laughed at their muffled voices, and Mrs. Suarez leaned out her window. "We realized you probably couldn't hear us. Mr. Suarez and I just wanted to say goodbye, Blake." Yes, goodbye." Derek's dad leaned over his wife to give his farewells. Come back soon." Pressing the palms of your hands together, you begged with big, pleading eyes. Mrs. Suarez gave you a soft smile. "I'm sure we will." Yeah, come back soon. He copied you down to the big pleading stare. He copied you. You were full of pride over his seal of approval. The corners of Derek's mouth tugged into a pleased smile at the reaction. Not Nicholas copying us. Stop it. That's so fucking cute. That's so my whole heart. This game. Take care, Blake. Then Derek closed the door for Jorge this time. He moved the massive door with much more ease. After that, the car moved further down the street before flipping around to drive up the hill and out of the neighborhood. You remained rooted there to the curb and watched the Suarez family drive away. You were relieved you got a chance to see the whole family again. But they were gone, and you were left to your own devices. Pivoting around, you made your way inside. Now that it was quiet, you yawned and decided that it was a good time to settle in for the night. Stretching your arms over your head, you noticed that the living room and the phone happened to be free. Call Lee. I love Lee. I want to talk to my cousin. You picked up the receiver and quickly punched in the familiar number while going to take a seat on the couch. Soon enough, after explaining the situation to the housekeeper, Lee answered. Hey. Hi, Lee. Can you talk? Definitely. We practically have to. My gosh, can you believe it's almost time for school to start? What happened to our summer? School starts first thing tomorrow for me. Ew, and I thought starting next week was bad enough. Enjoy your last week. Oh, I will. I hope you'll survive your first day. I think it'll be okay. School isn't too bad. That's true. Maybe it'll end up being a really good year. And at least summer was nice while it lasted, right? We were busy. Yeah. Fondly, you thought about all the best memories you made this summer. Lee was there for some, but there were still many you hadn't filled her in on yet. You reminisced about a moment of your summer. You began to speak about, oh my goodness, this is cute. Okay, we'll talk about 3. Talk about the road trip you took. I went on a vacation. Cove's parents ended up inviting my whole family on an RV road trip. Whoa, that's awesome. It was a 3-day trip and we visited the Redwood National Forest. Lucky. Oh my goodness, I love that we can talk about like whatever we want. Cove was flirting with me on the trip. Cove did what? Lee's so shook. I love her. He tried to flirt. I was surprised too. I'm so happy for you. You have to keep me updated on what happens next. It was hard to focus on what she was saying. Your face was probably red right now, just thinking about what happened. Yeah, we'll talk about 3 of our moments. For the record, all of these moments are actual moments we played through in the game. We'll talk about you know what? We can talk about the soiree at the country club. I went to a soiree at my mom's country club. There was lots of food, dancing, and people dressed up formally. Oh, I've been to one of those. They're cool, but how did it go for you? I danced with a mysterious stranger. That's so exciting. I want to be swept off my feet by a mysterious stranger. It wasn't exactly like that. After laughing a bit, you dove into telling Lee everything about your encounter. You enjoyed sharing the memory with her. Do you think you'll see him again? I don't know.
He didn't seem to be from here. Oh well, guess he'll always be a mystery. Okay, one more. I'm sorry, I'm obsessed. I love this. This is so cute. When you got to go to the boardwalk with the Suarez family, that's like a favorite moment of mine. My family and Derek's family took a big trip to the boardwalk with an amusement park this summer. My mom's Elizabeth, Derek and his mom and dad, and his 2 little brothers. I know the place you mean. How'd it go? Not the I wrote the Ferris wheel with Derek and Nicholas. Cute. And kind of romantic. Well, maybe not because his little brother was there. Nico was asleep, so we were mostly alone. Oh, that definitely sounds like romance was in the air to me. Move on to talk about her, or I'll be here all day. Also, when I do try the DLC, so the way it works is, and when we get to step 3, I'll show you. The main game, the free game, you get 5 moments of Cove in step 1, 5 moments of Cove in step 2, 5 moments of Cove for step 3, and then you get his epilogue. And then there is a DLC to get more Cove moments. I believe it's 10 in step 1. You have a DLC to get Derek in step 2, plus you can get 5 more Cove moments. I can't remember exactly how it's broken down, but you can see it on Steam. And then you get 5 more moments with Cove in step 3, and 5 centered around another guy. We're not talking about the fact that the last guy is my favorite. We'll get to that. But yeah, so you'll have to look at like Steam, or I think you can check on itch.to to see how they're individually broken up. But like I said, they're like $5 each. There's also, if you end up really loving Cove, there is a Cove Wedding DLC you can buy that I will be doing a separate stream for when we get there, because I know Cove is a favorite. Cove is a favorite for everybody. What was your big highlight of the summer, Lee? Talking to you is always the best part of my summer. Aw, Lee. Can I just say I love her and she's just adorable? Like, my whole heart. Even though it was a phone call, you just knew that Lee was winking at you. Good, I'm glad you picked the right answer. That had Lee laughing hard for a few moments. Alright, okay. So high point for me was when I took that trip with my parents to Europe. That was amazing. You and Lee continued to go over your adventures until you both were yawning to each other over the phone. And at that, you decided it was time to say goodbye for now. You did have school to wake up for in the morning. Bye, Lee. Night, Blake. Talk to you later. You left the phone on the side table for now. Looking at the clock on the wall, you saw that there was only about 10 minutes until your moms would be insisting you had to go to bed so you could be rested enough for school. Yeah, no problem. I'll drop you a message on the cord when I'm done here. Like I said, it's over on itch.io, but I can also send you a direct link. You stretched your legs out on the couch and sighed in defeat, watching the minute hand change 1 minute closer to bedtime. You rearranged yourself, feeling restless, and looked out the window. Startled initially, you spotted a figure out in the hills. It was Cove. When the surprise faded, you realized it really wasn't that much of a shock at all. It was exactly something Cove would do. Go outside to meet up with him. Strolling casually, you went over to the front door. When you arrived, you noticed how many fireflies were out that night. They drifted along lazily, barely minding your presence as you waded through to reach the top of the hill. Cove turned towards you as you approached, and you noticed right away that Cove looked happy to see you. Hey. You had a bounce in your step. You weren't sure how long you'd get before your moms roped you back inside for bed. Hey, what are you doing out here? Nothing, not really. He shrugged, seeming unhappy with his own answer. You stared at him, waiting for him to continue. Well, I guess I was feeling kind of weird about stuff, so I'm getting some fresh air before bed. I hope you feel better. His mouth pulled into a bent smile. He spoke so quietly that you almost missed it. I think I will. Cove let himself fall back onto his butt and then all the way down so he was laying on his back. He looked up at the sky. Lay down yourself. Yeah, I can show you both later. I got you. We can go over Steam and Itch. Yeah, lay down yourself. You lowered yourself to lay back on the hill. He had been lost in thought, or was possibly waiting for you to situate yourself, but he started speaking unprompted again. I'm sorry for being kind of awkward when my mom was leaving. Surprised, you stared at him a moment. You weren't expecting that. I just wanted you to know that I talked to my dad about how I felt and things. It's okay now. You were genuinely glad to hear that, and it brought a small smile to your face, but your thoughts quickly wandered back to the first day you met Mr. Holden. Did his dad confess about that? From the way Cove talked, you guess he hadn't. So there was more Cove and his dad should talk about, but it was a relief to know that they had made a start. Now is not a good time to bring up what you were thinking, though. You could wait longer to say it. It was almost unbelievable how much of an impact he made on your life just by moving in next door. You couldn't even imagine what your days might have looked like in a world where you hadn't met him. Cove glanced back at you, waiting for a response, and you had no idea what to say. Then, still without a word from you, Cove gave an exaggerated shrug. What? It's you. Huh? He snickered before answering. He looked thoroughly amused with your reaction. That's what you do all the time, so I'm being you. I don't do it that much. Cove burst into deep laughter. When it slowed, he continued to grin. Honestly, there weren't many people you could think of who could tease you about something like that. Returning his smile, you realized there was no denying that you two have been around each other for a long time. Cove broke the quiet before it could fully settle. Hey, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, see you then. With the final wave, Cove headed for home, but you stayed there for a few minutes longer. Your mind kept going back to his simple statement, see you tomorrow. No matter how much was changing around you, there were some things in your life that always seemed to remain true. The hills felt warm to you that night. Before you knew it, you were getting comfortable under the covers in your room. Your mind couldn't help but still be buzzing with thoughts about the future. You felt, excited. There was little doubt in your mind that things were moving forward, and you couldn't wait to find out what changes were waiting for you on the horizon. Slowly, your eyes grew heavy as you drifted off to sleep, your mind spinning with wishful thoughts. No matter what happened next, you could only hope that you would make the most of it. You were ensnared in a dream when a noise from the outside world jostled you. I would stubbornly keep my eyes pressed shut. The light clatter continued. Now that you were more alert, you could distinguish it as a tapping sound. Quiet, slow, but persistent. Each beat was like being poked. You couldn't ignore it. You lifted your head from the pillow and looked for the source. Not much work was needed to puzzle it out. It was from the window. With that, you knew exactly what it was. From the color of the light filtering into your room, it was too early for anyone to be awake, including the sun. It had barely hauled itself over the horizon, but that didn't stop some people, it seemed. You sat up in bed and opened the window wide. Cool air, not yet warmed by the day, tickled your face as it pushed into your room. And just as you expected, there was your neighbor crouching on your windowsill. He was fully dressed, though not for school. He was wearing a wetsuit and a shy smile. "Hi, Blake." You stared back, blinking. So technically, we won't be back to school for a few more hours." His voice was delicate yet deliberate, each word a careful explanation. "Classes haven't actually started yet, so do you want to hit the beach with me one more time this summer?" "Uh-huh, always." His smile widened affectionately. You rushed to get changed into something suitable while Cove climbed back down to ground level. Your limbs, still half asleep, struggled somewhat as you attempted to coordinate them into a swimsuit, but you got there in the end. Soon you were tiptoeing out of your front door, clutching a towel. Cove was already there to greet you. Your eyes met. Cove's gaze darted to your destination and back to you. You checked the door was closed, gave him a thumbs up, and the two of you leapt into action. Wordlessly, you began to run down the familiar path ahead, Cove beside you. The thrill of your illicit outing made you want to laugh, not that you dared. If anyone in your family looked out and saw you, then your summer would be back to being over. One glance at Cove told you he was exactly the same, holding back snickers for fear of being heard and caught. The towel streamed out from under your arm like a cape. You were running so fast downhill that simply keeping your balance and not tumbling down was a real threat. It just wasn't enough of one to make you slow your pace. For every step you took, the beach was a little closer and the day a little brighter. What lay ahead for you would arrive, and you were happy to meet it. They're so cute. I love them. Okay, time to update my little character again. So I think the hair is good. I'm not sure if there's anything I really want to change, but we're still gonna double check. Let's see. You know what? We'll do nail color. Why not? I sometimes like to have black nail polish. And maybe a nose ring? You know what? I want a septum piercing. I'm just too much of a chicken. Thank you, Hunter. I appreciate that. I absolutely love getting to develop my little character. But yeah, that's probably what we'll do, because I would love to have a septum piercing in real life. I'm just too much of a chicken. But yeah, there we go. Oh my goodness, it's me. Well, the me I wish I could be. I do miss my Fluffy, though. It doesn't hurt that bad. I love them. I love them so much. See, I know technically with the septum piercing, if you get if they get the right spot, it's not supposed to be, but just the fear of getting someone that goofs it and completely fucks it up. I'm too much of a chicken about piercings. I can't help it. I can't help it. So you know what? I lived through my little visual novel character. It's all good. Plus, I would always be worried, like, I don't know, when it comes to having, like, a stuffy nose and stuff, it just, I don't do any, but they do look nice. Yeah, so in theory, I would love one, but I don't have the patience or the pain tolerance or the, we love that for you, JoJo. Okay. Are we good? Are we ready to keep going? I'm so excited. Give me more. Give me more right now. Okay. We're still gonna keep our feelings for Cove being crushed. Also, just a warning, the stream is going to go longer than intended. I know I'm scheduled to get off at 10, but with the visual novel, we typically run over. So just a heads up, like, relaxed crush. Yep. And we are not going to customize Cove at all. We are going to let how we've interacted and the story be the thing that does things. Can stay on all night? Hell yeah, let's go. Yeah, we're not going to customize Cove. I want him exactly as he is, the sweet baby angel. He is perfect no matter what. Oh, tutorial time. Since you are romantically interested in Cove and are old enough to start being physically affectionate more seriously, you can choose what initiative level he has throughout this step. Making sure the player experiences what they want is important in our life, but always putting your choice first can potentially make a relationship feel one-sided. So we've added some flexibility in how it works. Low initiative means that Cove will occasionally ask to touch the MC, and in those situations there will always be an opportunity to say yes or no. For example, he won't simply lean over and kiss the MC as a greeting or in an emotional moment. Every piece of physical interaction will be either initiated or approved by the player before it happens. We love that. Middle initiative means there will be those certain times when Cove requests to touch the MC, many chances to initiate affection on your own, and also he will pretty regularly give affection automatically. One example would be giving the MC a kiss because he's happy or emotional or something else. And in other situations, you can choose not to make the first move in order to give Cove the space to be the one to act afterwards. Overall, the love interest can get romantic, but the player's agency will take priority. Genuinely, we love consent here. Thank you so much. This game is just next fucking level. They genuinely thought of everything. High initiative includes everything middle does, but it also means that the player agency will be reduced to a degree in favor of having Cove give physical affection even more frequently and with less prompting. Instead of all the major affection giving situations being led by a choice menu for you to decide on, some will instead be replaced by Cove acting automatically. This level is only recommended if you're very comfortable with physical affection and would prefer to simply see it happen rather than always holding the reins on it. However, this level is mostly relevant if Cove ends up as your official boyfriend at some point. Situations where high-level initiative makes a difference tend to come up in scenes that are exclusive to being in a relationship. The parts that are also included in the middle initiative, which will be seen whether you are dating or not. Once you pick your level, it can't be changed partway through a step. The choice only comes up at the very beginning of a story section. We hope you enjoy whichever initiative option you decide on. think we're gonna go middle ground, is what I'm thinking. Yeah, middle initiative. Okay. Water break before I get into more reading. Genuinely, like, I love that I'm showing y'all this game because the experience is so customizable from what you can do with your character to how you engage with the other characters. Like, if you want, you and Cove can just be best friends. Or if you want, they can be like a huge like love story. And that is the thing I love the most about this game is there are so many options and different lines of dialogue that you can go in and switch stuff up and see what else the game has to offer even after watching me play it. Like, it's one of the many possibilities. The sky is the freaking limit, buddies. Okay. The start of classes ended the relaxed, free days of summer. It didn't take long for you to get back into the swing of the school year routine. Schedules and homework became the new normal. Derek wasn't around nearly as much, to his great dismay. With school itself and after-school activities, there weren't many opportunities for him to take the trip out to your neighborhood, especially because he was always at some training camp or on a new regimen with a strict schedule. The two of you were usually stuck with merely telling each other about what was happening in your lives instead of sharing your days in the same place. Absolutely keep in touch over the phone as best you could. We are not losing contact with Derek, so help me. The Jeremy kid did disappear after that summer, and no one ever heard from him again. Where he went or what he might be up to was a mystery. You saw more of Miranda around. Since you had hung out with her on her birthday, she had opened up to you. The two of you talked regularly. She was the same towards Cove. After a while, all three of you developed a real friendship together. More summers came and went like the waves on the shore coming in and out. In your second year of high school, someone new started to visit Sunset Bird, a sunny girl named Terry Brooke. She was a friend Cove made due to them both being ocean obsessed. Terry was more than glad to befriend you too. Someone close to Cove had to be good company, she felt. You were pleased to get along with her as well. Funnily enough, Terry was also extremely tight with Miranda, who she had known for even longer than Cove. The four of you were able to create a small friend circle. As for your home life, the Thrashers also had developments. Changing laws and public perception countrywide made it possible for your moms to openly wear their wedding rings without question. I fucking love that. I love that. That one line alone in this game speaks fucking volumes. Like, I want to fucking cry. Stop it. Though they had a wedding years ago, it was only recently that the union was officially recognized everywhere in the US. That was a good day, to say the least. Elizabeth came into her own and stopped being quite as irritable. She'd no longer worried about perceived childishness as she grew up for real. She didn't even mind being called Lizzie again, although most people used Liz. She eventually graduated high school and moved out to attend college in another state. It was a lot for you to adjust to your older sister being gone. Liz never let you forget her role in your life, though, and kept in touch. Cove's relationships with his family improved over the years. Kyra visited several times after that summer, and things became easier between the two. He was also closer with his dad than ever before. You knew they talked more, and that helped to prevent a lot of friction before it could start. However, Cove grew into someone no one would call social. He kept to himself usually. He cared for the few connections he did have, but didn't reach outside of them. Cove had shifted from preferring athletics to becoming more seriously studious as his schooling went on. Your feelings for Cove hadn't wavered. However, you grew to have a better understanding of what exactly those feelings actually were. Your attraction to him was special and reserved for very few people. It was strange to look back on it all. The future faded into your present, and then it was simply the past. Even the most fundamental parts of your life couldn't last forever. You felt the most pointedly the day you inevitably graduated high school. It was over, and you would not be going back ever again. From now on, what came next was your choice. You would be directing your own life. That was where you were currently, the summer after school had ended, the first summer of true freedom. That used to be a reprieve from the typical. What used to be a reprieve from the typical was now going to be your first step into adulthood. One fine summer morning, you took in what had become a very special scene, the whole family having a meal together. Your big sister Liz still hadn't lived at home full time for a couple years, but she arrived last week to spend the season here since it was an off semester for her. She wanted to make sure she was in town because you had now also graduated high school, so who knew how much rarer these moments would become in the future. You watched on as Liz laughed good-naturedly over a comment Mom made. Her Elizabeth-only mindset had only been a phase. Nearly any nickname was welcomed at this point in her life. Strangely, even though she'd moved away, you'd lately felt closer to her than you had in a long time. You idly scooped up more of your breakfast and chewed absent-mindedly. Thank you for renewing your subscription. I appreciate it. Generally ate whatever. I like that you can even, your diet in the game can come up. Like, if you're vegan or vegetarian or something. It's so detailed. My goodness. In the moment, and the meal you had reflected that. It included just about everything your moms had made, though you often made your own food nowadays. With Liz around, though, your parents made even more options than usual. Your sister had been vegetarian for a while, and they wanted to make sure she had choices too. We love the supportive moms. Like, it's something so small, but it's so sweet. Conversation had gone on idly, without you fully taking in the words, until your ears were piqued when Ma started on a bit of town gossip. And so that's how I heard the news. All right, now stop burying the lead and tell us. What is this so-called news? Ma giggled as she cast a look across the table, satisfied that she had everyone's attention. Well, it turns out the Donnells won't be renting out the condo up the street as per Sunset Bird tradition for the first time in what must be nearly 2 decades. A chorus of gasps and shocked expressions were had all around. After the initial shock, your eyebrows pinched. Ma may consider them by name, but you and Liz always viewed them exclusively as the mean old couple who would yell at anyone under 25 who crossed their paths. Your ma continued on with the story, spreading strawberry jam over a piece of toast as she did so. They've decided not to take big trips anymore. Friends and family will be visiting them at their home. That's nice for them then. Have a good summer, mean grandparents with no grandkids, away from us. My thoughts exactly. Good riddance. Don't come back. Be nice, kids. You don't want to end up like them, do you? You and your sister cracked smiles at the joke. At least they won't be here to yell at my children anymore. Lonnie. That blunt comment got laughter from all three of you. Engrossed in conversation once more, you continued to chat with your family until the meal was over. I hope Cove looks good. I think he will. Third time's charm. As it went, once the food was eaten, the cleanup had to be done. Liz took the role of washing the dishes and passed them to you for drying and putting away. You had a set of cups in front of you that needed to go on the top shelf of the cabinet. What if he's ugly? I don't think he's gonna be ugly. He's always been a little cutie. It was a struggle to get them up without a stepping stool. You were short. That's me in a nutshell. That was simply your lot in life. You'd always been vertically challenged. Yeah, if you didn't even know what to think about it. That was a struggle for you because you remember how you used to feel so content about it when you were younger. Liz shook you out of your internal musing by starting up an impromptu conversation. She seemed to be voicing the thoughts that had been buzzing around in her own head. I have to say, going back for another semester this fall is pretty intimidating. You'd think after the first year or two I'd have a handle on things, but no. You stole a glance at her, still placing cups in the proper place. I guess it's only fair. My first round was pretty general classes, and year one of my architecture major was the basics. Now it feels serious. I have to actually know some things. The laugh she gave was flippantly airy, but the way she scrubbed at the plates held more force than necessary. I know you can handle it. You got this, Liz. How sweet of you to believe in me. Thanks. Okay, why is grown-up Liz so sweet? Like, I kind of love her. She really grew out of being a brat, and I'm so here for it. Like, 'cause she was such a pain as a kid. Your older sister's mouth quirked into a small smile. It'll be fine, one way or another. Oh, but I'm not trying to scare you away from college, if that's even your plan. What is going on with that, anyway? Solid plan set for a long time, came to a firm conclusion recently. I have a general idea. You answered the question as much as you were able and willing to. Liz's smile grew more reassuring as you did. You've made it through 12 years of full-time education already. You've got plenty going for you. She's so sweet. What? It's so weird. Sometimes it still felt hard to believe your public schooling experience was over. In the end, I'd say average graduate. And satisfied, no. Just glad it was truly behind you. That's the one for me. I used to hate her. Same. Kid Liz is so irritating. Didn't like Lizzie. Elizabeth was kind of better, but Liz is who I'm here for. I'm a fan of Liz. You passed, it was fine, and now you could do whatever you wanted with your time. Liz picked up on the silence her question ended up creating. She decided it was time to make a closing statement on the topic. You're a good kid, Blake. Do what's best for you, and we'll be here to back it up. Stop! I love that. Thanks, Liz. At that, Liz happily passed the final dish your way. She waved a soapy-soaked hand as a farewell and moved on to her next task for the cleanup job. You refocused on getting the last pieces put back where they belonged. You eventually moved on to a new chore, but that was interrupted by the sound of your cell phone. I have my phone just set to vibrate, honestly. I don't be caring for all the sound. How is she was a kid, seems good now. She was honestly so irritating as a kid. Like, she was just mean. She was the oldest of the group, so she was bossy. She was constantly picking fights with everybody, picking on Cove for no goddamn reason. Although I don't think the picking on Cove thing really fully stopped. It just gets better because, like, we're all grown up. You casually picked it up from the table where you had placed it earlier. The phone was a couple years old at this point, having been a 16th birthday gift from your parents. They decided which model to get, but you got to pick the color. It was, probably black. A black case is pretty good in my opinion. Not, and it had a special charm attached to it. The picking on Cove makes me like, fair, Joe. We get protective of Cove around here. We're like, leave him the fuck alone. Which was, I want to see the options. Not the dolphin keychain Cove bought when you were a kid. Yes, that's so much now. I need it. You were pleased when you finally had a prominent place to use the gift. The screen lit up as you gave the little device a swipe with one finger. You were informed by caller ID that it was Lee. You weren't surprised. Despite having busier and busier lives and not living in the same town, you still had a good relationship with your cousin of the same age. Especially once the miracle of both of you having your own phones actually happened. She got hers first, though. Tapping at the accept button, you answered her call. A familiar, bubbly voice came through right after. Hey, Blake. Hiya. I trust I'm not interrupting anything major? Only some cleaning around the house. Oh, then you're welcome for my call. A distraction from that must have been desperately needed. Yes, thank you, my dear cousin. It's my pleasure. She giggled, and you could hear the jingling of the jewelry she must be wearing. Nothing amazing is happening for me either. I'm bored and felt like chatting. My morning shift ended, so I'm free for the rest of the day. Woo! That's good. If we're going for realism, I wasn't working at this point, so we're gonna go with that. You hadn't started working anywhere yet, so you couldn't relate. Unlike you, Lee had started dipping her toes into the workforce as of late. It made keeping in touch frequently even more complicated, but you both managed. What about you? It's been pretty normal. Cool, that's you then. So, how's Mr. Cove Holden doing? There was a teasing bent to her tone. She was never willing to let up on what was going on between the two of you. But that name was incredibly familiar to your ears. Cove, your next-door neighbor for the past decade at this point. He was your best friend. At least you hadn't admitted you felt more than that just yet. Someday you thought, someday he'd know exactly how much he really meant to you. Are you even surviving without the boy being 10 feet away at all times? Or is everything right with the world again and he's back? No, Lee, he isn't here. Just like he wasn't here yesterday, or the last time you asked, or the time before that. Aw, my bad. Can you blame me? Doesn't it seem like he should have made his grand return already? Plus, I want to visit soon, and he needs to be there too. You could understand where she was coming from. This was certainly outside the norm. For the past couple months, and the last few weeks especially, Cove had been going to his mom's place in Nevada. The two of you still regularly stayed in contact over text and calls, but still, your mind began to drift back in time to all the prior trips he'd taken to visit her. Almost every year, he'd have to go away for a while and then he'd be back. Ah. You weren't a fan, but made do. It's part of being a grown-up. Send him letters? That shit's so cute. Cove made sure to mail some back to you, too. That's how it was in the past, but lately he had been trying to see her as much as he could before taking long trips to another state became too impractical to do. He loves his mama. His part-time work could become full-time soon, or he could be moving somewhere else for school. Cove hadn't actually been entirely clear what his plans were after graduation. Cove was hesitant to speak on that, even with you. It couldn't be avoided forever, though. You both knew that. Ahem, maybe we should switch this up to a non-Cove related topic. Sounds like a plan. The rest of the conversation rolled on. Not much longer, though. Lee had to go, and you needed to finish your responsibilities around the house. The both of you exchanged goodbyes. Then you went back to what you'd been working on before the call came in. As you wrapped up the last of your chores, you were approached by Liz wearing a cheeky smile. I've got Mom's keys. You want to get out of this tiny town and do some shopping in a real city? That sounds great. Good, I'm driving. That was obvious. You didn't know how to drive. There you go. Surprise, Blake lore. Blake doesn't know how to drive. Go get your wallet and anything else. We're going now. With a nod, you made a quick detour to collect your stuff from your bedroom. You had money saved up from gifts you'd received. Graduation money had hit different though, I'm not gonna lie. After making sure you both were fully prepared for the long haul to the largest city in the surrounding area, you buckled into the car. It was a smooth ride there, with light conversation about what shops to stop at and the radio blasting. Liz controlled what played, but she made sure to pick songs she knew you liked. It was something the two of you had always done for each other. Stop, it's so cute. The trip there breezed by, and in what felt like no time, you had gone from cruising down the road to cruising through the mall. Liz had her interests to check out, and you yours. I feel like my hobbies more or less stayed the same, 'cause I've always been into art, and I think the art thing kind of followed me into adulthood. We're also going to turn off that alarm so it doesn't go off in 5 minutes. But yeah, I'd say your hobbies and skills were still the ones you developed when you were younger. When turning a corner down a new length of the mall, your eyes caught on a little gift store. Your friends and family had recently given you many presents for graduating high school. You know what? I think we have something. You had a gift of your own ready to give Cove when the chance came. It was something you had known you'd wanted to do, and you were looking forward to seeing his reaction. Graduation may have already come and gone, but Cove wasn't really around, so you had to wait. Eventually, the mall was explored in full, with every shop of note being checked over. Rather than going home, you decided to walk over to some smaller stores nearby. Liz had many thoughts on that topic. Honestly, malls are not the bastion of society. Even if smaller stores require extra distance, the brands are so much more. Then your sister abruptly stopped speaking and walking right in the middle of the path. It was a good thing no one was behind her. She seemed to entirely shut off for a moment. Liz, are you good? Girl, what's going on? Liz? The attempt to catch her attention was unsuccessful. Something else had all her focus. Before you could puzzle out what might be happening, she began to mumble out of the corner of her mouth. Blake, don't draw attention, but look. What? With a harsh whisper and a subtle jerk of her head, she urged you once more. Look. You followed her gaze as best you could to a large bunch of colorful teens strolling down the same path. Okay. You faced back over to your sister with a confused expression and an unspoken question. What were you supposed to be seeing there? Blake, doesn't one of them seem familiar? She was practically bouncing at this point, so you looked the group over again, and this time you saw what she was seeing. Among the collection of strangers was brown hair, gray eyes, and lots of freckles. That's Shiloh, our Shiloh, from when we were kids. Yep, that was definitely him. I can't believe it. He's honestly just there. That's hilarious. That's incredible. Oh, but how do we talk to him? We'd have to pull him away from all those other people, and what if I'm wrong? Your mouth opened to reply, but she cut it off with her own answer to the question. I've got it. I'll shout the name Shiloh, and then we can act like it wasn't us. If he responds to that, we'll know without a doubt it's him. Blake, keep an eye out to see if he looks. Liz, can't you just try talking to him normally? Like a person? Likely without even hearing what you had to say, Liz put her plan into action. Shiloh! She loudly projected the word across the way and then put on an act of casualness, turning her head away from the scene while brushing at the skirt of her dress. In a supremely awkward moment, you could only stand there as attention in the area shifted to the two of you thanks to your sister's shout. But one of the many startled bystanders who became altered to your presence, one of them was the boy. From a distance, his large eyes met yours. He looked. A wide grin took over Liz's face. She pushed the rim of her sun hat up and away from her face while swishing back around to greet her old friend directly. Shiloh! Waving, she stepped a bit closer to express her intention to meet without really closing the gap. She wanted him to come to her. Who you presumed to be Shiloh looked surprised at the call-out. He stole a quick glance at the crowd he was with and hesitantly glanced back your way. He was trying to double-check something. Liz remained steadfast with her gaze trained on him, and ultimately he broke away from the rest of them. After a light-footed jog across the brick path, the young man pleasantly presented himself in front of Liz and you. "Hi, I like your hat." Just that simple greeting had Liz giggling. "Hello. I'm not sure if you remember this, but I'm Lizzie and that's Blake. We were all friends when we were little kids." His already wide eyes grew even larger, their gaze darting between you and Liz. His previously chipper demeanor faded into something delicate. I'm really sorry, but I think you have the wrong person." You could tell not being instantly recognized was going to make this exchange more of a challenge. Still, Liz was undeterred. "It was a long time ago. You were really young. I get why you feel like that. However, I'm positive I'm right. You're exactly the same. The face, the freckles, how genially you try to phrase things. You're even still wearing a hat." Instinctively, he looked up at his headwear with creased brows, not making the connection on why the hat meant something to her. "We knew each other, okay?" An uneasy smile settled on him as a silence followed Liz's speech. He was picking his next words carefully. And then the quiet was obliterated by a new voice bursting into the conversation. "Shiloh, what are you doing? The rest of the group already left. A field trip is not a vacation. We are on a schedule." Startled, your head snapped towards the path. A distinctly unhappy individual with piercing magenta eyes, dark brown skin, and a sharp jaw stormed your way. He carried a cloud of authority with him, despite looking like he wasn't even 18 yet. "Sorry, I didn't mean to ditch." Shiloh, whose name was now officially confirmed, gestured with a hand to add to the explanation of his absence as the stranger watched impatiently. "They thought they recognized me as someone they knew, but it was a tiny misunderstanding." Liz theoretically as well as literally put her foot down at that, stomping in frustration and getting more childish the longer she was around her childhood companion. "We do know you." Shiloh merely shrunk in on himself. The tone he spoke with was pained. "Sorry." You honestly couldn't tell if he was apologizing for the upset feelings of your sister or the palpable dissatisfaction of his new acquaintance. That in itself was very Shiloh-like. "Oh, you know him, is that it?" The stranger spoke in a dismissively scoffing tone, as if the words sounded so absurd to him it was almost amusing. Almost. But the sternness of his demeanor quickly reinstated itself. "Well, do you know me? I'll tell you. I'm someone who has been forced against his will to be aware of what's going on in Shiloh's ridiculous personal life for a year. If the two of you had any importance in his general day-to-day existence, it would have come up by now. Don't bother trying to exaggerate any trivial connection you might have. It's not good enough. He's with us, and you'll survive without him. Now stop loitering in the road. It's rude." "Okay, that's intense." "Excuse me? We're the rude ones?" The high-strung ranting got an audible gasp from Shiloh, who finally started to speak up again in defense. "Nate, that's really mean." "It's also true. We're leaving." With that declaration, the unofficial introduced Nate indignantly spun on his heels and walked speedily towards where the group went, completely confident that Shiloh would follow behind. "Ah. Oh, people can sure have bad attitudes, huh? Why can't they just try to get along? It's not hard. Don't worry, though. I bet you won't have to deal with him again. And I'm sorry I can't stay to talk to you, but I hope you have a really nice life. Bye." And that was it. His final parting words were given. Shiloh left the two of you behind to catch up with his own life that he had to go live. Liz watched his exit, stunned, only to frown when it hit her that he was really gone as quickly as he appeared. It happened so fast you hadn't even been able to get a word in. She sighed, all the energy she built up releasing with the breath. I could have told him his last name was Fields, his birthday is October 30th. That would have proved it, but no. I'm sorry, Liz. He felt so bad for your big sister. He had been such a close friend in her early years, and their reunion was completely ruined. Do you want to go catch up with him? Liz merely shook her head, pushing off childish thoughts. I think we can leave it there, thanks. He's in the middle of a high school field trip, and it was already enough being able to see him. There's something reassuring about witnessing firsthand that he's still out there enjoying his own part of the world. Though, if given the chance, I could definitely have a few words with him about the company he's got. She laughed, but you could tell there wasn't much humor to it. She was mad at that guy, even if she was happy to let Shiloh go. Maybe they're only with each other 'cause of the trip, and it's not usually how things are. True, we can only hope the same for him as he did for us. Have a nice life, Shiloh. We'll miss you. Liz smiled at you. It had the self-confidence you knew so well from her. Come on, kid. Let's finish our own trip. Yeah. No matter how either of you really felt about the occurrence, it was something you simply had to accept. People you know just disappear and reappear in the most unexpected ways. The two of you enjoyed what remained of your outing until it was time to return home. By the time you arrived back, the sun was already beginning to set. You arched your back as you stretched your arms forward towards the ceiling. While it had been a good day, it had enough activity to cover an entire week. Liz tried to hide a yawn behind her hands. You weren't the only one feeling worn out. I'll be heading up to your room, the guest room, since mine stopped being available as soon as I was out the door. Her tone was light. She'd had quite a lot to say on the subject when you'd first taken over her bigger room after she left for college, but there have been many trips back home for her since then. The room hasn't been hers for years. It was more of a running joke now that she continued to bring the topic up to this day. Thanks for being so gracious about giving it up. I had no choice. A small laugh was shared between you and your older sister. You better believe you'll be back in the guest room when you've got your own place and we're both in town for a visit. We can take turns. You'll have Thanksgiving, I'll get Christmas. What a reasonable and mature suggestion. I'll think about accepting it. She flashed her familiar grin, and you couldn't help but feel glad she was back around, even if it was temporary. With that, she plodded off to the spare room. You were ready to do the same. Moving into a new space was your first opportunity to decorate from scratch. Design your room, let's go! I want to design my room. We gotta go blue, but I do want to look at the other ones real quick. It's unfair that blue doesn't have a computer, but I'll live. What extras? Little basket? Okay. Window, left, right? Okay. Little plants? I like the books. Oh, the little stuffed animals are a must. Give me them. Oceany things? Yeah, Oh my goodness, there are so many cute options. Hold on, I like these right now, but I might like something else more. I like that. The lights replace the. Okay. I think that is good for that. And then middle guitar or whatever, some sort of instrument. It's a little uke maybe, some sort of something. I like that. That's cute. Okay. Okay. I'm satisfied. Okay. Done. You were really satisfied with the feel of your tiny part of the world. As your thoughts drifted, you tried to bite down another yawn. It was no good. Your bed was now lodged in your mind, and all you could think about was collapsing on it. Room looks good and the game has a lot on it. I love this game, but thank you for appreciating the way I decorated my space. It's cute. I like it. You trudged up the stairs to your room. Stepping inside, you closed the door behind you, blocking the rest of the house. When you turned back around, you realized you were not alone there. Comfortably perched up on the windowsill was someone very familiar to you. Cove Holden. The shock knocked all the words out of you. Surprise? I love him! Stop! That's such a Cove thing to do. Be so for real right now. This is such a Cove move, and I love him for it. His tone was easy and relaxed. It certainly was a surprise. You hadn't expected him to be within the state, never mind your own house. He hadn't answered how he had suddenly just appeared back in Sunset Bird, though to be fair, you'd been too astounded to actually ask the question. Thankfully, Cove took the hint from your stunned expression and began to explain. I got in about 15 minutes ago. No one was home, so I figured I'd come in the usual way. The window. A small smile had formed on his face. You were still staring at him, unable to blink in case he disappeared. You could still barely believe that he was really there, mere feet away from you. I left my bags in your backyard. I hope that's all right. That was when you truly understood. Cove had come straight to you upon getting back into town. You were his first port of call, taking precedence above all else. Even though you hadn't been in when he called, Cove had ensured that he'd see you at the earliest opportunity rather than allowing his plans to change. I love him. Walk over to join him. He was here, and it was exactly where he wanted to be. There was no need to hesitate in enjoying his presence. As you approached, Cove quickly hopped from the windowsill to meet you. Absolutely, Trouble's back in town. He's been getting us in trouble since we were kids. What do you mean? Pull him into a bone-crushing hug. He's so cute. Wait, look at him. His little glasses. I like his hair. I think his hair was the thing I was the most concerned about, honestly. Cove squeaked as you crushed the air from his lungs. He awkwardly managed to wrap his own arms around your back in return. He moved to wrap his arms around your shoulders, and he tucked his head into your neck. His breath was warm against your skin. I missed you. Even if he hadn't said it outright, you would have gotten the message from his body language. Cove was grinning widely, his raised cheeks burying his eyes, which gleamed like hidden gems. But he looked at you as if you were the most exciting treasure of all. How was the trip? Yeah. Cove told you about how his trip back had gone. His mom was doing really well. She had a project in the works that she was thrilled about. As a result, Cove was going to be sticking around Sunset Bird for the time being. Things were settled as much as they ever could be. With Cove back once more, you felt at ease. Cove stretched his arms out over his head, his eyes on the window and the world beyond. The sun had set while you'd been busy reuniting. I should probably get my stuff and see Dad. He glanced over to you with a familiar, expectant look. Want to come with me? You know I do. Cool. Cove began to head to your bedroom door. Insist on a piggyback ride. It's like tradition now. Let's go. It's just a normal thing in your relationship. Cove. He paused, turning to face you. I'm not planning on walking there. Cove shook his head, the smile on his face implying that it was you and your senses he was questioning, not the request. He'd come to expect the latter, even if he didn't get why it held such appeal for you. Okay. He crouched low so you could hop on his back. Cove had many inches on you in height, so getting on his back for rides had been a challenge over the years. It sometimes ended with one or both of you sprawled over the floor. At this point, he knew exactly how far he needed to bend down. This understanding and your extensive practice made it relatively easy for you to climb aboard the Cove Express now. Cove straightened up with poise, accustomed to balancing someone over his shoulders. Cove carried you down the stairs. You had to duck down a couple of times, the ceiling grazing against your elevated head. Still, you safely reached the ground floor of your house. The door is going to be in the way. Get off here so I can open it up. He bent down to let you slide safely off his back. Seeing things from your usual height was disorienting after getting accustomed to looking down at everything. In all the excitement of Cove's return, you hadn't even remembered the gift you'd prepared for when he got back. It would be best to give it to him now before he left your house. Can you wait here for a little while? I got something for you. Cove's eyes widened as he tried to conceal a smile. He toyed with the collar of his top. Really? I mean, you didn't have to do that. You nodded with some eagerness, trying to imagine how he'd react when he actually saw it. Hold on, the gift you'd chosen hadn't been something you could buy? It was, what is it? Oh my goodness, not the orange shell he'd been entranced with since you were kids. That's perfect for Cove. Give him the shell. Give him the shell right now. You quickly went up to your room to collect the shell, knowing exactly where to find it. It had been housed in the same box since you were a little kid after all. Taking great care, you extracted it from the case. Though it had been a long time since you'd taken it out, the grooves were as familiar to your fingertips as the opening line of your favorite song was to your ears. Cove had admired this shell ever since he first saw it, declaring it to be the best of all your treasures. Despite that, he'd never accepted your offers to take it. You hoped that might change tonight. You closed your hand around the shell, not wanting Cove to see it until you were ready, and headed downstairs. When you were back in front of Cove, you cautiously lifted your arm up. He looked on curiously as you unfurled your fingers to show him the gift. I know you don't want to take it from me, but what I want is for you to have it. Cove stared at the familiar shell nestled in your palm. His mouth parted, though no words came out. He drew his eyes up to meet yours silently, and found the answer to whatever question he couldn't speak. He put his hand over yours and broke the silence. Okay. It was as quiet as a whisper. His fingers were as gentle as his words, brushing against your palm as he took the shell from your grasp. Watching today, I like Cove a lot and how he is. I adore Cove. Everybody loves him. He is like the favorite child, honestly. He cradled it carefully against his chest and smiled at you, his eyes bright. I'll keep it forever. Cove reverently laid the gift safely on the counter, but he didn't turn back to face you once he had ensured it was secure. Though his face was angled away from you, you caught his eyelashes fluttering as if batting away tears. His throat bobbed as he swallowed bubbling emotions. You knew that Cove could be sentimental. The gift and all the memories and feelings tied up in it seemed to have taken a toll on him. When he began to sniffle, you felt the need to reach out. Cove? I can't. Blake, I don't know what to do. He forcefully scrubbed at his eyes like he was trying to push the tears that threatened to spill back in. Oh, Cove, it's okay. Do you need to cry? No. I love him so much. Look at this sweet, soft man. Not the no as tears are actively running down his fucking face. I love him. Nevertheless, tears had begun to spill down his cheeks. Even as he wiped them away, more took their place. Thank you. His voice quavered as he spoke. Cove scooped you into a hug, pressing you so tightly against his chest that your breath escaped in a short squeak. He burrowed his face against your neck, his shed tears damp on your skin. You hugged him back. You're welcome. Cove let out a steady breath. It was far removed from the shaky gasps that had accompanied his sniffles. The tears had dried. His eyes were a little red, but open and at peace once again. He smiled, fully recovered from the emotion that had overcome him. You're really seriously too nice to me. You smiled back. I don't think there's such a thing as too nice when it comes to you. Cove brushed his hand against the pale ghost of a scar on his arm. He was at a loss for what to do now. The clock ticked away, counting the seconds of silence. Once you'd had a chance to settle your thoughts, you figured you'd tell Cove the intriguing news. I meant to tell you earlier. I saw Shiloh today. Shiloh? Cove repeated the name, his expression blank. From when we were kids. Cove pondered for a moment, then snapped his fingers. Oh, he was the freckly boy from that first summer, right? The one who moved. I met a guy named Shiloh. He looked just like the Shiloh we knew, plus however many years. But he didn't remember me and just left. Cove frowned. That's, I don't know. Too bad I missed it, though you knew him better than I did. That was definitely true. Not only had Cove known Shiloh for a shorter period of time, but he and Shiloh had never quite gotten along. Not that they were enemies either, just kids who were only ever together because of other people they both knew. I wonder what Shiloh's up to these days. I don't have any idea. He didn't say much. Oh well. That was everything you had on that news item, so you moved on to the next big update. Also, you know the mean old neighbors, the ones who would always yell at us? He cringed, recalling those particular memories of back in the day was not pleasant even for someone as nostalgic as him. Yeah? They're not coming. They didn't rent the condo this summer. Cove's jaw dropped. You didn't blame him. The elderly couple had been an institution for as far back as you could remember, long predicating Cove's arrival. Preditating. Even now, as a teenager, you found your neck prickling as you walked by their condo, half expecting a scolding for breathing the wrong way in the vicinity of their vacation home. It was strange to think of that coming to an end. Wow. Cove blinked, clearly struggling with the idea in the same way you had. I didn't see that coming. People being gone, people coming back. It feels like I've missed a lot. This has been a busy summer already. Well, you haven't missed the fireflies. They haven't shown up yet. Well, that's something, and we'd better not get left behind. There's still stuff to do. You nodded. As soon as you'd left your house, Cove bent down to let you climb back onto his back for the last part of the journey. It seemed that no sooner as the night began than it was already at an end, and the dawn of a new day was soon upon you. The next morning, your belly was full of breakfast, and you were in a pleasant mood. You hoped the rest of the day followed suit. Later, you were meeting up with your friends, Cove, Miranda, and Terry, to go into town. It was all on short notice, but that was because everyone was just so excited that Cove was finally back home. Having a nice daydream? You blinked, pushing all your thoughts away and returning to reality. Your mom was watching you with a teasing smile. So, what's on the agenda today? I'm meeting up with some people. Well, I hope you and your friends have fun. Don't get into too much trouble. She winked at you. You knew both of your moms wanted you to enjoy every bit of this summer before all the big changes started. I'll try. But before you go gallivanting around the town, could you bring the mail in? I'm finishing up putting the dishes away over here. All right. Thanks very much. As soon as you were outside your front door, you couldn't help but see Cove and his dad standing around in the road. They noticed you too. Hey there, Blake. Cove smiled lightly and waved. When you began making your way over, he added, Hi. Hug him always. Cove hugs forever. Following your lead, Cove hugged you back, and he held on for a few seconds longer after you let go. His eyes shone brightly at you when you did part, sending your heart aflutter. And then as Cove's cheeks flushed, he couldn't quite meet your gaze. He didn't speak, but you felt that if he did, he would be tripping over his own tongue. You noticed Mr. Holden was taking in the scene of you and Cove with a self-satisfied smile. Cove followed your line of sight and shot his dad an unimpressed look. Oh no, he mad. For a moment, Mr. Holden seemed like he had a thought dancing on the tip of his tongue, but he decided to keep it to himself. So, what are you up to today? As far as I know, nothing too much. Me and Cove are meeting some friends in town later. Sounds like a plan to me. Yawning, Mr. Holden stretched his arms over his head. My boy and I have just been waiting around to see what the new neighbors are like. It was definitely his idea. I don't know how you're not interested in this. It's big news. Besides, it'd only be polite to greet the new folks in town. Cove is so over his dad's shit. Look at his face. He's like, this was his idea. Help. Well, anyone has to be better than the last tenants. Not that you've been here too long if seeing a new person rent a condo is what you consider an exciting development. No, we're gonna be nice. Anyone has to be better. I don't know. That house could be cursed, and we could keep getting ones that are progressively worse. Oh no! Cove, why would you put that out in the universe, my guy? He cracked a cheeky grin at his own joke. You could tell Mr. Holden was looking at the empty house, thinking about the nightmare that was the last tenants. He chuckled, turning to Cove. Bud, that would be horrible. Knock on wood. Mr. Holden took one more glance at the currently vacant building and sighed dramatically. When he turned back to you and Cove, his whole body seemed deflated. There's no sign of them, and I still need to head over to work soon. Cove gave his dad a few reassuring pats on the back. Okay, I promise to keep an eye out. I can text you if anything happens. Really? Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, only until I have to meet up with Terry and Miranda. Would that still work? With a wide grin breaking out on his face, Mr. Holden looked absolutely thrilled to have his nosiness enabled. Oh boy. That works! He moved to firmly place both hands over Cove's shoulders, fixing his child with a firm stare. Son, you are my true ally in this world. Mr. Holden stood up straighter, letting Cove go. He looked reinvigorated. Okay, with that settled, I'll go make some money. That's always been the one thing I do best. Mr. Holden headed off to the garage with a big wave goodbye. Cove smiled the whole time you both watched his dad leave. I love Mr. Holden. Yeah, he's one of my favorite people, for real. He's so sweet. He always tried his best and was honestly just great. As soon as he was out of sight, Cove sighed lightly. Are you okay? Yeah, just not looking forward to waiting. Guess I'll be hanging around the street a while. Ah, I can wait with you. You wouldn't abandon Cove there to wither on the road out of boredom. Really? Of course, I like keeping you company, remember? He stared at you a moment, smiling softly and thinking about his response. I like that too. Cove put his hands on your shoulders, gripping you solidly, but not enough to hurt. His eyes fixated on you just as firmly. He was serious. Blake, you're my true ally in this world. That got a fair amount of chuckles from you. He grinned, the stoicism fading into amusement. I knew you'd stay for me. I can't help myself. Is Cove? Yeah, well, good then. I don't know what I would do without you. The smile on his face reached his eyes, and it made you feel electric. Excuse me, water break. Goodness, that cough snuck up on me real quick. Okay, let's try to not have a coughing fit right now. And then he let go of you. Cove stepped over to his front porch steps, lazily taking a seat and leaning back on his arms. Our watch begins. Nodding in agreement, you joined Cove on the front porch steps. You both sat there in a comfortable familiarity as you settled in for the waiting game on the new tenants. The neighborhood was quiet and you sighed contentedly, closing your eyes and feeling the light breeze. The only sound you could hear was the familiar jingle of Cove's wind chime. After all these years, it was still there, adorning the entrance outcropping of his house. Eventually, you both perked up at the sound of a car. A taxi followed the noise, turning onto your street. Cove's eyebrows raised at that sight, and he sat up straight on the stoop. This has to be them, right? Yeah, it's gotta be. Now that they were here, you couldn't help but feel just a bit curious. You wondered what kind of person would be living in the neighborhood for the summer. The taxi pulled to a stop as you expected in front of the now empty condo. It was on the same side of the street as your house, a few buildings further up. Without getting to his feet, Cove tried leaning and tilting his head to get a view of the passenger door as it opened. The single occupant exited the cab. Huh? You could feel what Cove was in that moment. After the last renters, this new visitor was definitely not exactly what you'd expected. It was a young man who had to be close to your own age. He was dressed fully in an eclectic black, white, and gray outfit. Even his side-swooping hair matched the scheme. The only other pop of color was from something that couldn't easily be fashioned into submission, a pair of dark brown eyes, which you caught when he looked over at his audience. "Hello, folks. Who might you be?" "We're the neighbors." The smile already prominent on his face curled further. It was cocky, but you didn't get the impression it meant something adverse. Hallelujah. You and Cove shared a familiar look with one another, bewildered even further. The color-coordinated man left it there, however, and with a firm click he shut the door of his ride. Then he turned his back to you to retrieve a large, unsurprisingly, black suitcase out of the trunk. Continuing on with his own business, he strolled forward and lightly tapped on the driver's side window with his knuckles, asking for them to roll it down. When it opened, he leaned down and rested his arm on the edge. You assumed he was thanking the driver for getting him there, considering he slipped them a tip during the brief chat. They shook hands, and then he pushed himself up and away from the taxi with both arms, giving the driver room to leave. The taxi pulled away, rolling carefully down the road and out of sight around a corner. The new renter had officially arrived. He left his suitcase on the ground, out of the way of the street, and sauntered over your way with the confidence of someone who'd been invited to join. Cove finally stood up to greet this person. You followed suit. "I'm Baxter Ward. It's excellent to meet you, neighbors." You were standing on the side he was approaching from. When Baxter got close enough, he offered his hand to you first. Okay, yeah, shake his hand." Baxter gripped your hand firmly to give a satisfying shake. "Hi, Baxter, I'm Blake." "Hey, Blake, I'm quite keen on getting to know you better this summer. We could be good friends." From your other side, Cove made a sudden sputtering noise. "And you are?" He lifted his hand out to Cove next. Cove instead crossed his arms to express his rejection of that idea, still eyeing Baxter carefully. "I'm Cove." Baxter's whole demeanor lit up for unknown reasons. His eyes shone as he studied Cove for a moment. "Now wait, is that a nickname or your real name?" "It's just my name." Cove spoke mildly, having given that explanation many times in the past, but it clearly charmed Baxter all the same. He tossed his head to one side with a laugh. "Your parents knew exactly what they were doing. I can't imagine a more fitting name for the face I'm seeing. Cove, that's gorgeous." It's really not." No, I agree, it suits you." Nice to see someone else knows. The impact might have faded for you, living with it this long, but I promise to the onlooker it's a knockout. Cove couldn't face either of you after that. His cheeks were quickly turning bright red with embarrassment. You noticed that Baxter looked apologetic over Cove's increased discomfort. "I'm sorry, that wasn't intended to mean more than it did. I like your name, but you don't have to mind that." "I'm patently against stepping on anyone's toes." He chuckled to himself. It seemed like there was some extra meaning hidden there in his words, and you noticed that Cove raised an eyebrow, picking up on that too. Baxter stood up straighter, striking a slight pose with the position of his feet. He began to speak, but suddenly stopped and closed his mouth. He became absorbed in his own thoughts, tapping a finger to the side of his chin as he stared at you. You shot Cove a confused glance. He shrugged in response. After a few moments, Baxter had that same smile curl from before. He removed the finger from his face and used it to point directly at you. We've met before. What? When? Baxter continued to smile widely. His head tilted slightly to the side as he studied your visage. It's embarrassing, but I haven't remembered that part yet. He laughed cordially while Cove stared at him in disbelief. Baxter chuckled further, mirth growing at what must have been a very amusing situation in his mind. I'm getting there, don't tell me. I know you want to, but do not. It'll come to me. He continued looking you up and down, hand back over his chin while he racked his brain for answers. And then recognition appeared in his eyes. With a snap of his fingers, he announced his revelation as though he had forgotten his own birthday. The Caprese at the summer soiree, of course. Turning away from you, Baxter began rambling to himself about the details. That had to have been before any regionals, so at the time I was about 14 years old. That makes it 5 years ago from now, right? Cove's mouth fell open. Are you kidding me? Is he serious? Did you really meet this guy at that country club party 5 years ago? Certainly had. Never forgotten the mystery boy. My guy. You weren't sure what to say or what to do. He'd appeared in front of you so unexpectedly then, and he'd done it again. Cove's eyes darted between you and Baxter again. The instigator of this discussion lightly gestured with his hands in response. It's good not to forget a face. You see, my parents are members of the Suppress, whatever the hell you call it. They happened to be passing through on a trip across different states when they heard about the event. Funnily enough, the entire reason they joined was for the connections they could make with other members there. Looks like that perk has finally hit for me too. Originally, I thought it was only any good since I could occasionally dance there. Baxter suddenly stopped and stood up straighter. He grinned. Dance, oh yes, that's what I was going to say. I'm a ballroom dancer, hence the phrasing earlier. Oh, I don't know much about dancing, but that's pretty cool. It's not hard once you get the basics down. Cove didn't look convinced at all. Baxter took that as a cue to keep talking. Well, he grinned in a way that was rapidly becoming familiar to you. If either of you are ever looking for a partner, I'm available. Cove frowned at the overt forwardness. Thanks? I'll pass, I think. I'll take you up on that offer sometime. I look forward to that then. After that, there was a lull in conversation, and Cove attempted to fill it. What made you decide on Sunset Bird? Oh yes, well, my parents rented a condo, so I had a place to stay while I'm off for a semester from college and not living in the dorms. There was a playful glint in Baxter's eyes as he continued. Ideally, they wanted to send me somewhere that wasn't too exciting, but lucky for me, they picked the wrong street, considering the two of you live here. Cove was practically reeling over how Baxter found a way to fit comments like that into every single topic thus far. Why do you keep doing that? You don't know us, but you talk like you already do. I mean, technically he knows me a little. Cove spoke, firm yet genuinely confused, and Baxter smiled cautiously. I don't feel the need to keep words of praise to myself, and when I say something, I mean it. Plus, what's the point of spending my off semester alone? The best part of being somewhere new is getting to interact with new people. Am I honestly the first person to acknowledge you're attractive and intriguing people? True, you're hidden away in a tiny tourist trap, but still. Baxter crossed his arms. After studying your faces a few more seconds, he decided to continue. Am I only trying to score a hookup or get a romantic fling started by saying those things? No, that isn't the point of speaking well of others. I was raised better than that. Though, would I be fussed if that's what my words led to? Also no. I am flexible, not a surprise, I can back off with the lines if you don't like the attention, but I would like to be friends if we can. Cove wasn't sure how to respond. He glanced at you, and he continued to look at your face when he spoke. Thanks for answering. I'm not interested in any part of that with you. Maybe not the friend thing, but the other part. Doesn't bother me. Glad we're working things out. Shifting his weight to his other foot, Baxter tried to move forward. So, since you were both already out here, did my arrival interrupt anything? Definitely not. He smiled and silently agreed. If Cove wasn't going to say anything, neither were you. Baxter didn't need to know how much of today was spent waiting to see who was moving in. Baxter watched you both carefully for a hint of what was going on, but decided not to pry any further. Well, if either of you are free, I'd be thrilled to hang out this summer, but we can save the schedule talk for later. I should get my things inside. He gave a small nod of the head and flashed you both a dazzling smile. Goodbye for today. Cove simply waved goodbye. Bye, Baxter. See you. Baxter then turned on his heels and strolled back to his suitcase, picking it up and bringing it to his condo. You and Cove were silent as Baxter unlocked the door and disappeared inside the house. With him completely out of the scene, Cove let out a long breath. I don't know how I'm going to explain that guy to my dad. You burst into a fit of laughter, trying to imagine the conversation. So, you like it when people say that sort of stuff about people? It's okay to do it? Never mind. At least the job is done. We saw the new neighbor, and now we can go meet up with Terry and Miranda. Yeah, we should get going. You gave Baxter's condo one last glance over your shoulder. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Relaxed crush. This is my guy. I'm so hype. Let's fucking go. Yep, that's for me, buddies. Oh, which initiative level you would like for Baxter having step 3? We'll go middle of the road like we did with Cove. I mean, I do think he's charming, but you were looking forward to seeing more of him. Two things can be true at once. Baxter was different, but you liked him. Smiling, you hoped that he would become a good friend this summer. Turning your attention back to Cove, you pushed all thoughts of Baxter aside. You both started making your way towards town. A little while later, you and Cove reached a main street in town. All of a sudden, you stopped walking. What's wrong? I think I felt my phone vibrate. You dug your cell phone out and looked at it with a satisfied grin. There was a new message. Before you could read it, you were distracted by a small, amused noise from Cove. His head was slightly tilted to the side as he carefully looked at your old keychain. I can't believe you still have that. Of course I do, I love it. You meant it. The intensity of your words had Cove blushing and looking away from you. For a moment, you were both at a loss for more words. You were sucked into remembering that day he bought it for you. Cove was the one who spoke up again. I'm actually glad you like it. He looked from the keychain to you. His smile reached his eyes. It makes me happy seeing you care about it and everything. And that makes me happy. Smiling, you refocused on the task at hand. You opened the new text from Miranda, and all you saw was, I can see you. Immediately from where you stood, you started swiveling your head around. You couldn't spot Miranda anywhere, but she did send you more messages. Haha, I see you looking. Really, Randy? The message was sent, and you were back to looking around, scanning for any sign of movement and familiar faces, but they were still invisible. Cove looked at you carefully, raising an eyebrow. Ah. Miranda, come out! Come on out! Cove jumped a bit at your sudden outburst. He raised an eyebrow and looked at you carefully. What's happening? Before you could even begin explaining anything to Cove, you both snapped your attention to the yelling from across the street. And there you saw Miranda and Terry coming out from behind the backside wall of the grocery store. They both started waving wildly to draw even more attention to themselves. Cove took a step in their direction. He grinned and waited for them to get closer. Laughing and arm in arm, the girls stopped only to look both ways and then rushed across the empty street. Hi, I hope you weren't waiting too long. Hey, buddies. Hi. Hi. You were happy to see your friends. Their little tease on you was already long forgotten in your mind. Terry then closed the distance between her and Cove and crushed him in a painfully tight hug. You're finally here. It's been so long. What took you? He did his best to eke out a reply with his chest being compressed. Sorry. Eventually, she let him go. Terry looked at him with a beaming smile, but Cove was distracted, rubbing his arms. Standing there, Miranda shifted her weight to her other hip. She watched Cove patiently with a bashful smile. Welcome back. Thanks. It finally felt official. Everyone was together in one place. From here, you weren't sure how often you would have another afternoon like this again. They didn't either. Cove. Terry poked Cove square in the chest. You're gonna have to get me your schedule by this time yesterday. Not really possible, Terry, but I can say as soon as I know. As far as work, so far work hasn't said anything, but I can tell you I'm busy with Orca activities. When Cove wasn't at his part-time job or pursuing his academic interests, he volunteered for the Ocean Restoration California affiliation. Orca, okay, cool beans. The group focused on cleaning up beaches and removing pollution from the ocean. Cove always loved the sea. It didn't surprise you one bit when he started getting involved with them. Cove is so fucking cute. I love him. Cove is just the guy. You joined Orca too after learning of it. Their big smash event for the year is coming right up, isn't it? Yeah, there's not that much more to do before then, but I'm kinda looking forward to the fundraising push. Hopefully we can pull it off. If anyone can do it, it's you two. Even if it goes really bad, it'll still look good on a college application at least. That's true. Hey, guess what else? We don't have to stand here to say stuff. Let's go. I would like a meal now. Okay, Terry's a fucking mood, though. Love her for that. Perking up, Cove nodded in agreement. Yeah, for sure. The four of you headed into town, happily chatting the whole way. The only decision left to make was where exactly to stop and eat. Miranda was the first to offer a suggestion. I don't know about everybody else, but I'd like some chow mein. Chinese is fine with me. Entirely serious, Terry nodded. That'd be amazing right about now. Yeah, I can always agree there. Let's go. I love Chinese food. The group's lazy wandering shifted into a purposeful journey just like that, and as Terry predicted, the conversation was able to continue while on the way to food. You and Cove finished explaining what was coming up with your Orca fundraising efforts. All the talk of beaches reminded Terry of her own personal goals. She'd been considering getting lifeguard training. Cove and Blake can keep our ocean clean, and I could keep it safe. Such selflessness was inspiring for the listeners, though Terry butted in before anyone was too impressed. Don't be proud of me yet, I haven't even signed up. Laughter burst out in the little crowd. Miranda took a turn to chat about her life next. She'd picked out some 5-week summer courses at a community college. They wouldn't be starting until later in the month. It was exciting, though. Not content speaking solely of herself for long, Miranda mentioned good news for someone else. Specifically that her older brother Jude had a new boyfriend. You vaguely knew who Jude was. But even though you'd been friendly with Miranda for 5 years, he was already in an out-of-state college back then. He was in his mid-20s, and you were pretty sure of that. What you knew for certain was he had his own place with a real career and everything. Jude existed in a whole other stage of life than you, and hanging out with his much little sister's friends had never been on his to-do list. Now that there was an accomplishment worth being taken in by, Terry, who heard it, and Miranda, who said it, were equally dazed. He's been single for, a few years now. It's kinda seemed like he just wasn't interested in anybody, and that was true, basically. There wasn't anyone here for him. He's dating a friend he's known online for a long time. They've been playing games together since college. Okay, that's really fucking cute. This is my theory, but he might not have dated anyone else because all he wanted was to hang out more with that good friend. But no one ever said that to him. He never even hinted that there might be a thing there until one day they were suddenly dating. But besides that, what's funny is I don't even know his name. Jude didn't talk about him to us until they'd already known each other for forever. And now that Jude has started talking about him all the time, he just calls him Grant. Is his name not Grant? It's not. It's an inside joke about how they talked about school grants one time when they were first becoming friends. They thought it was funny how Grant was also a name, and were going all, oh, I bet Grant could get a grant. Then it escalated to joking about a grant being named after some person called Grant. His friend made Grant his username for everything, and it still is today. Okay, that's kinda cute though. I kinda love that for them. You basically had a concept of Miranda's brother, and that one explanation was everything you knew about his boyfriend, but the story gave a real impression of who they were. Wow, Godspeed, Judy. Never let Grant go. That's nice. I bet they're really happy. Ah. Yeah, I wish the two of them knew well as well. I don't know. What do you say to that? Thanks. Can I also just say this is so not relevant to anything, but I love that Miranda has purple eyes. Like, they're so pretty. Stop it. Trying to follow the incredible story of Grant proved difficult. Miranda trailed off. The current conversation was well and truly over, so Cove took a chance to speak. This has been on my mind the whole time, but there was never a good chance to mention it before. What is it? There's a new person renting a condo in our neighborhood. Really? From one tale of an unusual character to another, Cove spoke of Baxter Ward as if he was a local legend. His name is Baxter. He's in college, though doesn't look like he's much older than us. Maybe Miranda's age? He's not gonna be what you expect, no matter how much you try to guess. He's sleeping under the blanket around me now. The eyes are very nice. Coves also. I love just the eyes, the art style, everything about this game. I also have a sleepy puppy. Yoda's next to me, but T's gonna be home at any point, so I'm not gonna have a sleepy puppy much longer. Thank God. The description put Terry on the edge of a non-existent seat, and she was about to fall off it somehow. A new man in town? Who's our age? Cove Holden has been holding out on us, as usual. I won't guess. You tell me what he's like. Monochrome. Yeah. What does that mean? Baxter dresses in all black and white and a little gray. His hair is black with white streaks too. Huh? Cove had been correct. That kind of man had not been considered in the realm of possibilities for Terry or Miranda. He added on to your initial description with a couple thoughts of his own. More explanation was required to make any sense of it. Baxter is, bold. He says whatever he wants, and well, Blake already mentioned how he dresses. But I don't care that he has a style or that he's not shy. What I don't get is the way he acts so impressed by strangers who have done nothing. He said he wanted to hang out with us, me and Blake, this summer and all this other stuff, and that was the very first time we'd met. I have no idea why he cares or why it was so easy for him to say that to people he knows nothing about. Again, he technically met me before. Cove, you're just completely brushing that off, my guy. Uh-huh. So, you got his number? No. Cove's eyes squinted, and his nostrils squished inward from the incredulous scrunch that suggestion had given him. Considering the picture that had been painted, he couldn't understand why Terry would imagine anything like that had happened. That is a good idea! Then do it, and you should too, Cove. You don't meet a social butterfly like that every day. The black and white color scheme proves he is a rare specimen. This Baxter is flapping around the town, coming to appreciate our two good buds. Cove and Blake, right? Like flower buds and he's a butterfly. Terry, that pun is such a stretch. I love her for the pun, though. Well, he sounds like my kind of guy, and we could always use more friends. No, it's very possible to have as many friends as you need. This was escalating. The more fired up Terry got, the more Cove and Miranda wanted to shield themselves from the embers. I'm with Terry, honestly. Let's be friends. I know what you mean, Terry. The group of four was evenly split between the sociable and the shy. That line was drawn clearly with this discussion. No longer moving forward, Terry stood there with her hands on her hips. I'm gonna meet Baxter, right now. Cove completely stalled, except for his lips, which sputtered a response. What about getting food? I know the way. You can all go ahead. I'll be back before the food hits the table. You'll see it. Terry's light chuckles contrasted massively with a hefty sigh from Cove. You're actually going to go to a stranger's house and ask for his number? That's the plan? Yeah. Why do you gotta be like this? If I wasn't like this, me and you never would have been friends ourselves, and I probably wouldn't have been friends with Randy either. I don't live in this town. I can't miss an opportunity to connect. Otherwise, that'd mean leaving it up to chance or fate, or Cove's ability to have relationship progress on his own. I don't have all year for that. He'll be gone before then. Not to insult you for going slow, Cove. You're good the way you are. Baxter can be a butterfly, and you can be a snail. There was affection in Terry's extended metaphor, but Cove still frowned at the almost certainly correct assessment of how his connection with Baxter was going to develop. I don't like snails. How about a sea turtle then? Would that be better? Maybe? Okay, I'm a turtle. Not the I'm a turtle. Cove, I love him. Good, you can accept that. Order me the General Tso's chicken. I'll get his number. Inspired by the name of her meal, or perhaps her meal was inspired by the sudden mission, Terry gave a military salute before flipping around. Miranda and Cove simply watched in disbelief. Hold on, I'll go with you. Blake? Cove gave a halting yell, but he had no intention of stopping you. He just had more foresight than you in that instance. What are we supposed to order for you then? Oh. You slowed your pace way down and glanced over your shoulder. You called out, Get me some. I want some fried rice, please. Okay. He let you go, and you found when you looked ahead that Terry had stopped in her tracks. She waited for you after you announced your intention of joining. We love Terry. What a good friend. I knew you were a bud. The trip back wasn't long. You'd barely left your neighborhood before the announcement of this change of plans, but there was no time to lose. Together, you sped down the sidewalk, across the bend, and in only a few minutes you'd returned to the ever-familiar sloped street. Terry's feet took her halfway down the road, smack dab between your house and Cove's. It was a force of habit. Which is his? She asked the question so naturally, you almost missed realizing that she wouldn't have known where to go if you hadn't decided to come after her. Almost. But you wanted to see Baxter. It worked out for both of you. You pointed a finger towards one of the rectangular houses back up higher on the hill that she'd passed right by. That's it. Ooh, glad you're here. Let's go. She hoofed it in reverse, upwards to what had been the Forbidden Fortress. Though the former danger that haunted those halls had been released and instead was claimed by a proper gentleman. Terry fearlessly rang the doorbell. She'd never understood the true terror of the Donnells, but one might think there'd be some hesitation in the action. After all, she was still approaching the home of someone so unfamiliar to her She hadn't known which house it was. But they would have thought wrong. Terry remained fully confident in the decision. You stood at her side with hardly more justification to be doing this. The door opened, and there was the man you'd met 30 minutes ago. Baxter had said goodbye for today when he'd left then. What an overestimation of how long it'd be before you once again show him your face. Oh. He must have believed what he said, because seeing you raised his brow and put a questioning edge in his exclamation. Why were you back? After the initial recognition, though, his features all smoothed out into his default expression, lidded eyes and a curved smile. Blake, it's a pleasure to see you. And you. Baxter's head angled squarely at Terry. It was at a playful tilt. You weren't there before. Still keeping his face turned to Terry, his deep brown eyes shifted towards you. Blake must be popular to have such a rotating collection of company. I expected as much. Baxter blinked, and it was as if he'd never taken focus from Terry for even a second. His attention was on her so fixedly. He held out a hand decorated with sleek black rings to her, then gave a cordial introduction. I am Baxter Ward. How nice to meet you. The offered hand received a sprightly slap, a side five in place of a shake. I'm Terry, a friend of your neighbor's. His interest was piqued. Baxter, far less subtly, looked between the individuals making a house call, trying to gauge the motivation for it. With no hint to go off of, he settled for asking directly. I see. And what can I do for you, my neighbor and friend of my neighbor's? Terry was going to come by either way, but I thought I'd check in. Is the condo nice? It's lovely. His voice was distinctly sweet and soft. The tone might have been born from a simple appreciation of the condo. Or it might have been because you cared to ask, and the quality of lodging was irrelevant to how happy he was to answer. Blake here and Cove not here talked about you moving in for the summer. It sounded cool to me. I decided to see you and your black and white hair for myself. The reason people were unexpectedly at his doorstep had been revealed. Baxter's response to such an intrusion was pleased. He instinctively brushed a few strands of dyed hair, smiling all the while. Well, thank you. Uh-huh. You sounded cool, and you are. Let's swap numbers. Really? This town truly is neighborly. I'm not from this place. Terry's reason for seeing him was far more tenuous than Baxter assumed. She didn't live in the neighborhood, or the one next past, or anywhere in Sunset Bird. She laughed heartily over it. Baxter snickered much more wearily. Neither of them had a care in the world. Then it's the social circle from wherever they come that's so friendly. Even better. Does that mean I can have your number? That would be excellent. Good. Terry pulled out her cracked cell. Baxter did the same thing at the same time. His phone case was black and white. No surprise there. At least he's consistent, okay? Like, I can appreciate the consistency. They hovered closer to each other, bent over the screens and tapping away. After a mistype or two, numbers were exchanged. Thank you. Welcome. You can have mine too. And I can add you to my contacts. His head remained bowed, but his gaze lifted up towards you. His cheeks went up as well in a sparkling smile. Of course, I'd love that. Baxter waited for you to get your own phone out, and he repeated his number. You got it down, then gave yours in return. The contact name on his list was Blake across the street with an exclamation point. That's so cute, I don't know why. Perfect. He slid his phone into his back pocket. And I must admit, I was not expecting this vacation to go as well as it has. Even with a generous estimation of my social ability, I imagined I'd need a week or more to find someone to exchange numbers with. Instead, I have 2 new friends the very instant I arrived. Oh, Baxter, this isn't even all. Since you've seen me, Blake, and Cove, it's only a matter of time before you meet Miranda too. And there's still Liz, obviously. Maybe even Lee will make an appearance. The news of yet more strangers being invited into Baxter's vacation had no visible impact on him. He replied contented and calm. I look forward to all of that. As you should. Now we need to make haste. There are other matters we must attend to. Lunch awaits. That was one way to put it. Baxter's formal tone seemed to be rubbing off on Terry. Ah, then I won't keep you. I hope to see you again soon, though. Please feel free to text or call anytime. Have a good day. He's just so friendly. Same. Bye, Baxter. Come on, Blake. Like 2 shots, you went off up the road. Baxter didn't move an inch from the entryway as you left. Neither you nor Terry spoke on the race to the restaurant. The clock was ticking. Every second longer you took could be another drop in degrees for the warmth of your meal. You stopped to catch your breath only when you were under the shaded awning of the Chinese restaurant. Terry wiped her fully exposed forehead with her palm. Making friends works up an appetite. Yep, good thing we're about to eat. You entered the building together leisurely, pretending to be normal people who arrived for lunch in a totally reasonable way. Terry explained to the hostess up front that a table should already be prepared for her and you with 2 others. One who's short and in shorts, cute, freckled, big purple eyes, a lacy top. She's shy and probably didn't say much, but the hostess politely stopped Terry's babbling with the raise of a hand before she even began to describe Cove. That was plenty to get the idea across. You were directed towards the center of the dining area. Miranda and Cove were there, speaking quietly. In front of them was nothing more than 4 cups of water and a plate of 3 spring rolls. The dish was supposed to have 4. As sure as Baxter loved black and white, you knew it was Cove who ate the one that was missing. Even if food technically ended up in Cove's stomach before the 2 of you returned, an appetizer had to be cheating. Terry meant the main course and it was not there. You could still take it as a win. She certainly did. Hey, we made it! Terry, Blake, hi! Creases lingering on Cove's face showed he'd been worrying about the results of the unexpected pit stop until the moment you both appeared. But since you'd strode up so victoriously, he was reassured enough to already joke about it. You barely made it, you know. We ordered a while ago, and this appetizer is already here. Ah, close, but making it is making it. Did my good friends get what I requested? The sudden primness of Terry's speech was lost on Miranda. She didn't understand that a bit of Baxter had been brought to the restaurant with the 2 of you. Yeah, I got it. General Tao's chicken for you and fried rice for Blake. Yes, thank you. One of the empty seats was finally filled as Terry plopped down, satisfied after a job well done. You took the last remaining chair. So, did you actually see him and get his number? We did. Cove glanced your way, his wavy eyebrows raised in surprise. "We" was clearly the word that was on his mind. You continued with comfortable ease. "I got his number too." "Wow." The group had settled into its usual rhythm when your proper meals arrived a few minutes later. You ate and talked, and not once did the topic return to the element of the unknown, Baxter Ward. But he remained stuck in the corner of your mind. After many seasons in the sleepy town, you'd had expectations of what the summer of 2016 would look like. It had been all too easy to imagine. Sure, you'd graduated high school. Your life wasn't going to be the same anymore. But it was too soon for that to warp the existence you had for over a decade. At least you'd thought so. And yet, there was Baxter. He was something you'd not counted in a single one of your vacation plans. You couldn't have until barely an hour ago. Now his number was on your phone. A new world, one that you had no grasp on, was already poking its way into your old routine, and it had come in the form of a black and white ballroom dancer. You were lucky. The final days of familiar comfort had come, but the first sight beyond that was a charming young man asking to spend time together. The rest of the afternoon and evening passed by in the blink of an eye. When night fell, it was time to head home, and you parted ways with Miranda and Terry. You and Cove reached your neighborhood without event. It was late enough that your out-of-the-way street was dark and silent. Definitely walked tired after the long day. No, Cove's giving you a piggyback ride home, be for real. Always the piggyback rides and hugs with Cove. It was a long day out and about. You appreciated that you could rely on him to make things more comfortable for you. You tightened your grip on Cove and turned your head ever so slightly, peering at his face out of the corner of your eyes. You wondered why he felt so distant to you. It was out of character. For a while, Cove silently stared ahead and left you alone with your own thoughts. It surprised you when you did hear his voice all of a sudden. He still wouldn't look at you. It feels weird coming back to the neighborhood and trying to get into things like they're the same, and they're not. They've changed. They're still changing. Your mouth felt uncomfortably dry all of a sudden. It was true. The things that kept the people you knew together were starting to disappear. Each person had to make their own priorities and their own path now that it wasn't set for them. You thought about your own immediate future. You had been considering more and more, and ideas were starting to settle in your mind. You hoped, to focus on time that's not school or work, and to work, at least part-time. Maybe go to school part-time, I don't know. I considered school kind of at one point, it just didn't happen. For your career, you thought you'd work online. Maybe start your own business? That could be cool. And that was all. For your education, you thought you'd take classes online if I were to do school, definitely. And that's probably all. For yourself, you wanted to work on self-improvement on your own, definitely. Take some time to just relax. And try to figure out what you truly want. I think all of those are really solid goals. That was all. And for what you want, and for that you wanted to, I would love to be able to travel around to different places. It'd all be happening so soon. I I feel like probably make plans for a trip. The other stuff can wait. Yeah, make plans for a trip. And probably kept it to myself for now. Now you wondered what Cove had in mind. You'd heard him consider some things for his future, but it was never anything that would have counted as a real plan. Cove stopped in the middle of the street. He sighed and put you down, and you were both outside of your houses. Cove looked at the ground for a moment. His mouth trembled, trying to settle on the right words to say. So, what do you think you're gonna do now, for the future? Explain what you were thinking. I think if Cove directly asks, then I would talk about it. You did your best to articulate what he could expect from you, and he listened quietly. Cove closed his eyes and nodded while he composed his thoughts. He looked at you when he lifted his head. I decided on something. Well, kind of. He smiled slightly and rubbed his arm, and then his expression grew more serious. I'm not gonna decide on school or a career. Not this summer. I'm gonna stay here, at least in Sunset Bird. I'll probably move out of my dad's place. I'll keep working my job, keep doing my volunteer stuff, and everything else. Maybe I'll know what I want for myself by fall, or next year, or maybe I'll never have a plan. Life will continue on with whatever's happening. I'm not gonna crush myself trying to have everything figured out by a timeline that someone else has set. I just can't do it. His brow furrowed, and his tone was tense. It was clear how much expectations were weighing on him. That's valid as hell, Cove. I love that for you. You do what you gotta do. I know that's not very exciting, but it's the best I can do right now. Cove, it doesn't have to be exciting. It's your life, my guy. If you want excitement, you'll find excitement. He laughed self-derisively, but with the way his face looked, you thought he actually wanted to cry. Oh, Cove, it's okay. Smile at him. Your plan sounds very you. Your head tilted affectionately ever so slightly to the side as you watched him process your response. Cove was going to continue doing things his own way and in his own time. He exhaled, releasing some tension in his shoulders. Thanks for hearing me out on this. You knew him well enough to know that Cove wasn't feeling completely better about the way things were. No matter what's happening, I want you to know that you won't ever lose me. I won't really be gone. I'll still be there for you the best I can, whether it's long distance or whatever else. Cove's whole expression softened. His lips pulled into an affectionate smile. Blake, you deserve to have everything you want in life. Thank you, Cove. You stared at him astonished. A part of you still couldn't believe what he said, but he meant it. Looking at you fondly, Cove took a step closer, and he placed a hand on your shoulder. The warmth from his proximity helped relax you. He spoke to you softly. Wholeheartedly, he meant every word. Things are hard right now. It scares me, but it'll be okay. It'll be more than okay. Now that things are up to us, we can make our lives better than they ever were. You believed him, 1000%. No matter how daunting the future could be, he was right. You would be okay. Deeply, you met Cove's gaze. You nodded. At that, his expression morphed into a look of careful confidence. Clearly, he was still struggling with this topic, and you wondered what else might be on his mind. This was a start, I think. But it's not over, is it? We'll have to keep talking about it going forward. Yeah. Cove softly reiterated his promise. It'll all be okay. We'll still always be there for each other. Is that good with you? It is. Cool, that's cool. I'll see you tomorrow, Blake. I'll see you. Night. He pulled you into an unexpected hug. It knocked the breath out of you, yet couldn't have been a more reassuring feeling. You returned his embrace and stayed that way for as long as you could. Night. He finally let go, giving you another smile. Then Cove started walking away, but you remained there, frozen in the middle of the street. You watched him and wondered, how many more times will he be able to say that he'll see you tomorrow? You hoped for countless more times. Finally, you turned towards your own house. You vowed to yourself that you would make the most out of every moment you had this summer. And just like that, y'all, that is going to be the end of the stream for today. So these are all 10 of Cove's moments. And then these are the Baxter moments. So that also gives a little bit of information. Just the fact you have to go through all of the moments, include him during the hang moment, to get his epilogue. But it's okay, we got him. But yeah, these are Baxter moments. And I'm hyped to show y'all. Thank you, Hunter. I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed. Y'all, genuinely, I hope you enjoyed the stream. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And like I said before, I can never say enough. Consider checking this game out for yourself. Your own playthrough can feel so personal, and it's phenomenal. But on that note, we are going to end here. Y'all, thank you again so much for hanging out. We went almost double our scheduled stream time, which is wild, but so worth it with this game. I will see y'all around tomorrow. And as always, take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves. It's hard being a person, you're doing the best you can. I am proud of you. And don't forget to live a life that pisses off a bigot. Bye, y'all.